almost 10 years, almost a decade since that 2017 article.
Yeah.
And it seems like we have more questions now and less answers than we had then.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to talk to a staffer the first 2 or 3 times. If we get you in a SCIF, you're still accountable to the same NDAs and security clearances and all that kind of stuff. So if you say something wrong in there, you could get in trouble. We can't guarantee that you'll keep your job once wind of it gets out, and wind of it will get out that you're talking to us. Oh. They treat members of the mob that testify better than this. Like, even if I like Kamala Harris, like, she didn't earn it. You know, you can't just have it handed to you. Like, that's not how it goes. Because at the end of the day, like, what's Kamala Harris fucking done? You know, like, what? She was like, what has she done?
She did a few things.
She was like a DA in California that I don't think a lot of people liked.
Well, she wasn't. For one thing, she wasn't she's not a convicted criminal.
Right.
She's not on the Epstein list.
That's a plus.
She didn't stiff any of her workers. I mean, you can call it peace, but Ukraine still has to be on board with it. And if Ukraine's shut out of these negotiations, if it's just between the US and Russia, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. It's not the undocumented people who are making the lives of white working class people worse. It's the billionaires. The undocumented folks actually have got more in common with the white working class people who vote for Trump. This is not really about crime, addressing crime. It's about fascist spectacle. This feeling that a lot of people in America have, that they want to punch down against other people, maybe because they've had it rough themselves. They want to see the undocumented people getting tossed out, even if families are broken up.
It's just heartbreaking, isn't it? These videos. You're raiding a Home Depot parking. Like, why don't you raid a crack house or something? Like,
Republicans, at least MAGA folks, are complaining about that the elites are price gouging us, but when somebody tries to stop that, they call it communism. He's outright said that if they were to come here, or we were to discover them, it would be basically the greatest thing ever. It would be wonderful and all the rest of it. I mean, there's no way to know that.
Right, like, how could you know that? I think the only one that's gonna save humanity is humanity. It's just opinion. Like, for years they're saying we have this, and then when it comes time to put your cards on the table, we don't have that. He's in it, doesn't want to be in it, at least not while he's president. So kick the can down the road. Maybe the next president will put it out. I don't know, but it's bullshit.
He gives more well wishes to Ghislaine Maxwell than he does any of the victims. And whoever is on it, Democrats or Republicans, I don't really care. Because, like, if you're abusing, then, really fuck these people.
Okay, Luis, how are you, sir?
I'm well. I'm all right.
So glad to have you back on. I know last time we had you on, we talked a lot about UFOs, a little bit about politics. There were several comments left on our video. Folks are very interested in what you have to say and your opinion on different matters. And that's why I've been basically harassing him, folks. I've been harassing him to come back on the show. So we got him back on, and because there have just been so many crazy developments, and I just wanted to pick your brain on some of this stuff. So I wanted to start out with, though, you before, folks, if you've watched our previous interview, Luis co-authored the AATIP, the Confusion on AATIP AAWSAP paper that's on education or
academia.
Sorry, it's on academia. Yep, academia.edu. You can find it there. It's a great paper, and it basically it makes it very clear that Luis Elizondo, when he took over AATIP and AAWSAP, it was more of a hobby than anything else. It was essentially defunded. It was essentially just a project laying on the side of the road that he picked up and he was kind of doing in his spare time. And then when he got out, he became the AATIP AAWSAP guy, right? And he told everybody he was running it and he was doing all this stuff. And now you look at several years later, The UFO community in large has pretty much shunned him because of all the harassment and things that he's done online with different accounts and things he's called podcasters, and he's sicked different people on different people, right? So he doesn't have to say it's him. And there's the Jeremy McGowan scandal where he, you can read all that on the Medium paper. So we're talking about a guy that essentially it seems like he got called on his scam. That's kind of what I'm picking up. But what do you make of what Lou's been doing recently?
Yeah, I mean that's essentially, I think, what it is. I still don't understand his core motivations, but I suspect it's to do with kind of, I want to say, maybe reliving that vocation that he came from, counterintelligence and kind of cloak and dagger type of things.
Right.
But through the medium of UFOs. But there's a certain comical aspect about it, because it just is a little bit ridiculous to make that the focus of your whole identity or your life. But yeah, I mean, I still don't really understand what his core motives are at a personal level. But certainly he said a lot of stuff which is just plain untrue about his own role in AATIP. Just to remind your audience, he was not the head of AAWSAP, which is the official DIA program, but he had some association with it, I think. But the AATIP that he's talking about, that he was the head of, if you can call it the head, was the more hobby type or informal iteration of that, which came after the termination of AAWSAP AATIP proper. And yeah, that's what he was the head of.
Right.
But that was, as you said, unfunded. It was kind of just an informal effort. It did draw upon some of the network, which had been built up around AAWSAP.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Same folks.
yeah, but it was basically something he did kind of more in his spare time. Sometimes it seems like maybe with the resources at his disposal. So there's maybe some improper uses there of government resources, but there's still a lot that we don't understand about it.
Yeah. Right. And maybe only time will tell. Or maybe it won't. Who knows when we're dealing with these cats and all this classified shenanigans. But yeah, I know recently he opened a bar called Bombers, which is, have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, he's opened a bar in his hometown, Wyoming, called Bombers. It's like kind of World War II themed, but it also has like a lot of, kind of weird, different secret group patches and stuff like that, kind of as part of the decoration, the decorum, if you will. So Lou, he's saying he thinks the end of the world is coming, but he's opening up a bar. I don't know. Maybe he just wants to get wasted those last few days. Who knows?
Although World War II bombers is a pretty cool theme for a bar, I have to say.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he's got some cool stuff. He had the, what was it? The mayor of the little town he's in there cut the ribbon with some shears. But yeah, it's interesting. And then Luna just went on Joe Rogan, as you probably know. Hard to miss. I think it got like 1 million views the first day or something crazy. But she basically called all those cats, Melon, Louise, and Grush, full of shit. She said, "Hey, we've had an open door SCIF, and every time we tried to pin them down, they don't come, or they have some excuse for not coming." What's that all about? What, in your opinion, what do you think's going on there?
Well, it seems to be a repeat kind of what Kirkpatrick was saying, like his critiques about these people, that they're invited to come and talk, but they don't do that. They make excuses or they just don't show up to the meetings. And now with Luna, it seems to be the same sort of thing, that the critique that she's making. And she's actually a little bit of a nutcase. She's like a really, she really falls into like for some of the pseudoscientific stuff. But to her credit, she's at least, mentioning that these people are not doing what they're supposed to do by their own lights.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. I don't know enough about her to to say either way, but I do like that her and Burchett and oh god, I'm not going to be able to think of his name. Is it the other representative?
Is he Republican?
Yeah, he's the other guy that's kind of like the head of the UAP thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know who you mean.
Burleson?
Burleson, yeah.
Burleson, okay.
And by the
Yeah,
way, these
those,
people, I think maybe Luna as well, but definitely Burchett and Burleson have got biblical inclinations towards how they think about UFOs.
yeah,
Yeah, they've said as much as well publicly.
yeah. It's, it's hard to not at least consider it, because we're talking about stuff that's so, I mean, if I'm going to consider being abducted by aliens is a possibility, then why is reading the Bible looks way more sane at that point. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it seems like the Bible, there are parts of the Old Testament that do talk about things in the sky, weird interactions with beings, other gods. And,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Bible's not unique in this in terms of ancient texts. There are
Sure.
other texts from around the world that talk about strange aerial phenomena and various
Yeah.
interpretations have been attached to that.
Especially in
So
India, right? They have those huge,
yeah,
they have like sky crafts that they drew from
right.
hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Yeah.
So, but my point about Burleson and others is that they attach a kind of Christian fundamentalist take to UFOs, which is kind of the demonic hypothesis
They
or the
might be
fallen angels
demonic. Yeah.
hypothesis. And you know, that's there's no evidence for that. I mean,
No,
I
no.
mean,
And
I've got a bias as an atheist, but still.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, that's okay. We still love you, Luis. I just had on, a Catholic gentleman, Cruz Moreno, who's just a great guy, but if you take the religion out of it, he's just a great guy. But he has kind of dabbled in all of it. I mean, from the dark arts and witchcraft to, now he's a full blown Catholic. And his take was, the Catholic Church, not going to get into all the mistakes because, whatever. But basically, when it comes to the thought of extraterrestrials or beings from another planet, like they're open to it. I mean, they have like two of the biggest observatories on the planet. They've been researching it for years. Pasolka, for her American Cosmic book, went to their archives to do some additional research about saints floating in front of tons of witnesses and stuff like that. So they have a recorded history of strangeness, and they don't deny it. I think the internal debate they're having now is more, would they need to be saved if there's ETs? Or would they have like a different type of Bible, like a different set of rules for the same God, right? And since their rule book is like canonized, how would they sort that? Is kind of what I gather from what the internal debate is. So, and then you had, like I mentioned, Pasolka come out with American Cosmic, which has had a pretty big effect on me as I'm working my way through it, because she does make these. Now, she is a professor of religious studies and she is a Catholic, but she does make these connections where it's like, wow, there was all throughout history all these different incidences, but somewhere around the mid 20th century, it got away from describing these things in a religious aspect to describing them in like a advanced technology aspect. So like as we get farther away from that religious worship or whatever, we're looking for different answers. So things we can't explain are advanced technology we can't explain instead of angels and demons.
Although you might have seen I interviewed Ted Peterson, who's a theologian, is a Christian
Yes.
guy on my channel. He also accepts the possibility of ET intelligence, but he makes the very good point that even though the UFO mythos is kind of laden with technological themes, it's still very much imbued with religious kind of motivations, because it's about salvation ultimately. So
Sure.
aliens are sort of seen as a celestial savior, and the idea is that humanity is kind of, it's fucking up, right? We're doing all kinds of things which are
There-
jeopardizing our future, and
Right.
the aliens are sort of seen as
They're gonna
essentially
save us.
angels who are coming to save us from ourselves.
Right. It's so
Um,
ridiculous.
yeah, so I mean, the aliens, if there are aliens, they would just be as likely to not care about us at all as to care about us, or even to hate us. But we don't know what
Right.
what
Yeah.
it could be. But so yeah, he mentions that. Now, did your guest? I haven't watched your interview yet, but I
Oh,
will.
it's 3.5 hours. You're okay, buddy.
Uh, yeah, but you were
Watch it
mentioning
on a
that
road trip.
he's a Catholic. So does he have any takes on? And this is something that is arguably more prevalent in Protestant thinking about UFOs, but a lot of Protestants think that UFOs are demonic, um,
Mm,
because they tie it to evolution. So the idea, and this is something that Ted mentioned as well, is that
okay.
if you accept that these beings are more advanced than us, then it's because they've had more time to develop and evolve. And so by
Mm,
accepting that these aliens are aliens, you're already accepting evolution. And to these Protestants, these fundamentalists, um, and not all Protestants are like this, but many are, they
yeah.
they think that if you accept the alien evolution, that you're accepting evolution per se, and that evolution is satanic because it's drawing you away from God, according to them.
Okay.
Whereas
Okay.
with Catholics, it's not so much about evolution, but there is a stream within Catholicism that sees UFOs as demonic. Ted couldn't figure that out. Did your guest have anything to say about that specifically?
Not really. No. I mean, he was more of the mindset that it's you want to be you don't want to build your house on sand, right? So you got to have your own line in the sand and your own core beliefs and lines that you won't cross, right? And then it's okay to investigate it. Get back to your question. No, he didn't really expand on that. He basically said that they're open to it, and that, like I said, their biggest debate is whether they would need to be saved or not.
Mm.
But I am with you, like especially after the three body problem. I tend to think more like if we get found, this planet is rich with the building blocks for life. I mean, it's rich with, we've got all the building blocks for life and energy and all these different things. And yeah, if there was another biological type life out there that found us, I don't know if it would be a good thing. I'm not convinced that it would be a good thing, because you look at the way we view resources. Picture us in another 5,000 years. Are we going to be so depleted that, hey, invading a planet full of monkeys, it's not such a bad thing. We need the resources. They're just monkeys, right?
Yeah,
So,
but by the same token, if they're advanced enough to come here,
mhm.
they're advanced enough to exploit the resources in the universe which don't rely on living planets like Earth. Because, like,
Agreed.
for example, water is very prevalent in the universe. There's more water actually on the icy moons of the gas giants than there is on Earth.
Okay.
And we don't know if they have life, but supposing that they don't, the aliens could go and get water from those worlds without the hassle of trying to militarily conquer Earth.
Right. Yes. And if they can control us, a lot of people talk about them manipulating our minds and things like that. Like, why would they need to? I
Yeah,
mean, what,
yeah.
why would they need to invade and take over a world where they can control anyone in it?
By the way, apologies to Ted Peters. I said Ted Peterson.
Oh, Ted Peters. Okay.
Yeah, it's just early in the morning, so I'm not.
No, I know. I know. This is super early for me to do an interview. I was like, oh, God, you have to get the coffee going. So, okay. So the book, how's the book coming? How's that coming along?
Yeah, so that is an expansion of the paper that
Mm-hmm.
VJ Ballester Olmos and I wrote. But we're going to add a ton of stuff to it, including some of the recent events like Phillips being fired from Arrow, You might have thoughts on why that was, but I just heard that it was because he'd been warned not to do more interviews until after his contract was up. But then, like, he gave an interview with Steve Greenstreet, and also I think with Mick West,
Yeah.
maybe others. So maybe that's why he was fired. I don't think that Trump has personally got much of a pulse on the UFO thing. He's got
He
enough on his
seems,
plate, but
yeah.
some
Yeah,
people
he
adjacent to
seems,
him probably do, but I just don't know what the real reason was for Phillips being fired. Yeah, so there's that. There's also like more and more revelations about who was involved in ATIP slash ORSAP and kind of the paranormal inclinations that they had. You might have seen in the Green Street piece that he did recently for the New York Post. He put out a great video. It talked about kind of the poltergeist, what's it called, the hitchhiker effect idea.
yes. I did watch the videos. I was in his space after that article dropped, where he was making fun of that woman for being scared of a dino beaver.
Yeah, JW Wyatt, something Wyatt. I forget
Yeah,
her first name, but she was
yeah,
she was a scientist. I think she's still a scientist for the defense industry or the CIA. And yeah, she was claiming, along with many other people who worked for this
right.
program, that she was being followed around by UFOs or poltergeists. And there's
Yes.
also interestingly Dietrich, the famous pilot who was involved in
Mhm.
the Nimitz encounters.
Yes. Yeah. She's
She
American.
also it was on that chart at least
Hmm.
that diagram that Greenstreet showed with the arrows pointing to the locations where people were still having these experiences,
Yeah.
and Sarah Gam as well, a
Yep.
scientist
Yep.
working for various defense contractors in the military, and she was saying that UFOs seem to be following her around on Facebook. She had a post from a few years ago and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So I find that aspect super interesting, actually, because I don't really know what to make of it. I don't
Yeah.
believe that there are poltergeists, let alone that they're following people around. But why
Mm.
is it that so many of these people involved in the Skinwalker Ranch and with ORSAP say that they had those experiences?
Well, I'll tell you, I had on Eric Mitchell. I don't know if you're familiar with Eric Mitchell at all. You know who that is?
No.
Okay, are you familiar with Michael Masters?
Yes.
Okay. So, are you familiar with the telepathic experience that he says that he had at that conference?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, Eric was one of the two he was having that telepathic interaction with. And Eric has been to Skinwalker. Well, so Skinwalker isn't even really Skinwalker anymore. They sold off chunks of it. And there's this other gentleman who bought, I think it was about 40 acres or so. And he's calling it Space Wolf. And Eric has been out there. Eric's, he had an experience when he was I mean, he was a grown adult. He was like mid 30s or something.
Hmm.
Wasn't into UFOs or anything like that. Went outside one night to have a smoke, had an experience, like really messed with him. And ever since then, he's like progressively it sounds crazy, but he's like progressively gotten more and more intelligent. Like he's actually scored his IQ, it's gotten higher. They've put his brain under scans. He's talking with Gary Nolan about coming over and doing some tests at I think it's Harvard, right? Or is it Stanford?
Yeah.
I can't remember. One of the two. Now his theory is that there's something, and why they always talk about digging or not digging. He believes
Yeah.
there's something under, right, under the earth there. And it also has to do with X points. Have you heard of X points?
Are those like the ley lines?
Yeah, they're like basically like legitimate wormholes, kind of,
Oh,
in
wow.
space. Yeah. So he believes what's happening is there's some type of magnetic interaction between whatever's under there, and one of these X points that may happen to fall in there that's causing all this weirdness to happen with people. And we don't understand the technology of whatever it is, if it even is technology or if it's just a thing. But whatever it is can essentially mess with your head. And that's why people see different things. It will actually grab like screen grabs from your phone and manipulate that, he said. It will kind of perpetuate anything you might be afraid of. So like if you go in there afraid that a 7-foot wolf is going to follow you with red eyes, that's what you're going to see. And that's why so many people report that. So that was kind of his theory, is that there's something non-human. He doesn't believe there are beings within it, but there's some type of technology under the ground there. And that's pretty much as far as he was willing to go with me.
That's the thing about that is it's very reminiscent of when people say that there are no aliens coming here, but that it's the government manipulating gravity or something like that. So like people are just kind of substituting one extraordinary explanation for another. And I'm not super familiar with Skinwalker Ranch or its geology, but I have heard, and I have to look more into this, but that there may be methane or some other gas leaking from the ground because of the geology there. That could affect people's perceptions.
Possible, yeah.
So I don't know that I mean, wormholes, hidden technology just seems a little bit fanciful. And we know that people's perceptions can be profoundly shaped by their expectations or stories that they've heard, and by their interactions with other people there who might rile them up.
Absolutely.
Or, fear, emotional state can have a profound effect.
Yeah.
There's obviously animals that live there. They could be spotted by misidentified.
Right.
So I think we don't we don't need to go all the way to wormholes. That's my position right now. But I have to look. I want to look more into kind of the geology, especially of the place, because if there is gas being emitted from the ground, I mean that would probably be a fairly parsimonious explanation if that gas does have effects in the nervous system.
So like, how many seasons are we gonna go? Once I think we're in season 6 now or something. So it's like I'm getting to the point now where it's like, okay, y'all, it's time. Like, it's starting to feel like what was that one show that they had, The Curse of Oak Island? Did you ever see that show? It was like we've got this island and we bought it and we believe there's gold here, and they spent like 15 seasons just digging around the island. It was like, what? I guess that's entertainment. I don't know. So yeah, it kind of feels like, I don't know, but Green Street is another one. I do appreciate the hard work he does. But he's susceptible to, making mistakes just like the rest of us. And the Wall Street Journal report, man, that pissed me off, because that first article, they make all these claims. And then they say, we're going to have evidence to support this in part 2. But then part two comes out and no evidence.
Almost nothing to do with part 1, in fact.
No. And also, we didn't even have EMPs back then. And I'm supposed to believe we took a thing we didn't even have yet and shot it down a nuclear silo with active troops inside the United States to see what it does. And then after it gets hit with the EMP, it's able to just power back on. Like, that's not how it works. To me, that's more ridiculous than aliens. I'm sorry. That's crazy to me that we would risk setting off a nuclear weapon on our own country just to see what it does. That's not how we test stuff, folks. That's not how we test stuff. That's just not. That's completely crazy. And then to have zero evidence of it. And then to say also, oh, well, even though this was only done at like a couple of posts with like a couple of officers' permissions, there were times when, we would kind of test them. We would tell them we have UFO stuff just to see, if we could trust them. That's nonsense. I had clearance in the Army. That's fucking ridiculous. They would never do that shit. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And they have like no evidence. And okay, maybe a couple guys did it here and there, but you're saying that explains all of it?
Yeah, it's definitely not a monolithic explanation for
it was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. And it just seemed like it was it was an easy button for the folks that don't want to go there, right? Like the folks that don't want to open that door and just keep it over in this little compartment, they can go, oh, yep, see, fake, boom, over there. So like gave them that comfort, you know?
Yeah. So VJ and I, we mentioned in a part that we're going to add to the upcoming version of the paper, book, that the Wall Street Journal, it's a very, very reputable journal, just like the New York Times. But the New York Times ran the 2017 story, which had a lot of mistakes in it. And this obviously also has a lot of mistakes in it. And it shouldn't, skeptics shouldn't allow it to become like their version of the Leslie Kean article, right?
On the other side.
Yeah. So it's like going too far in the other direction. I should also mention with the nuclear site incident, around Salas, obviously like the electromagnetic pulse hypothesis doesn't have much grounds, but on the other hand, we already know that there's a lot of problems with Salas's account without going towards that either. Like it doesn't need to it.
I have heard that, but could you be more specific? Like what did he do that, because I haven't heard that side of it. I have heard that there's problems with it, but I haven't heard what the problems are. So where
the problems stem from him saying where he was in certain days, and attributing certain claims to other people who worked in the military, but some of them have died, so they can't speak for themselves. Other ones have refuted his claims about what they were doing or where they were, and there's other problems like that to do with the base or the underground facility. And the report by the Air Force itself, they did an investigation where they looked at the incident, but they just determined that it was a system malfunction and they replaced the offending electrical board or whatever it was, and it didn't happen again.
Right.
So I mean that wasn't the only incident at a nuclear site apparently. But I mean, that particular saga, I mean, it's very problematic. And Salas has changed his story and attributed things to other people that they didn't say, or that there's no evidence that they said. There's actually a very, very good treatment of this in the UFO eyewitness testimony volume, which is actually edited by VJ. But I recommend that people read that paper.
What's that called again? I'm sorry.
The book is Eyewitness. What is it? I always forget the exact title, even though I've read large chunks of it. It's a UFO eyewitness testimony, something like that. Yeah, but
I'll find it. Yeah,
it's a compilation of lots of essays and reports by different people, scientists, psychologists, reporters. Yeah.
Speaking of Leslie Kean, now have you heard some of the stuff that Red Panda Koala uncovered with what was going on at some of these events with her?
Do you mean
the end of the world stuff?
New Age kind of?
No, so there's Leslie Kean, right? She did the New York Times. We all know Leslie Kean is, great reporter. And then there's all these other folks like podcasters like me, right? That like want to know the deal, paid a bunch of money to go to this dinner thing, this conference thing. And then there's like the inner group of the podcasters, right? Like the real ones, it's like hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
So she would take the very top internal circle of these at these conferences, pull them aside in a room, would make it look totally normal, nothing suspicious about it, and would basically tell them that the end of the world is coming. The government knows it. All the NHI that we're seeing, all the activity here is because they're just here to watch it happen. The government knows it. There's nothing they can do about it. And that's what's going on. And she's telling people this.
That's crazy.
Yeah. These are like big time podcasters like Jesse Michaels, Chris Ramsey, like all the big guys. Yeah.
Not that the world might not be coming to an end. I mean, we could be on the cusp of World War III. global warming catastrophes and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Our guess is as good as anyone's. Certainly as
Well,
good
I
as
think
hers. What is the evidence that she's presenting?
I'm hearing pole shift a lot. I don't know. So it's a third hand account, right? So it's Red Panda reporting on um his witness, to the event. So like I'm getting it secondhand or third hand. So I didn't get into a lot about why or how, but just that all of these NHI that we're seeing, the reason we're seeing such an uptick in it is because they're just here to watch the show.
Yeah, it just sounds like a rehash of Christian eschatology, like end of times. There's going to be like all these weird events like earthquakes and
Yeah.
stuff like that, angel sightings.
Pole
But I don't
shifts.
know. Sorry? Yeah.
Pole shifts. Now, is that a real thing? You're an educated guy.
It is. The Earth's magnetic pole has shifted many times in the past, but it takes like, I don't know what the frequency is, but I think it's like every few thousands of years or tens of thousands of years it shifts.
Okay.
Some natural process, but it's got nothing to do with aliens or.
Does that cause an extinction level event?
No, it doesn't. It might mess with I suppose, the navigational systems that some animals have evolved, but I don't think it's implicated in mass extinctions.
I mean,
There have only been 5 mass extinctions which have been documented, and many other large extinctions, but mass extinctions per se, like the Permian or the KT event, there's been 5 of those in Earth's history, and those were caused by bolide impacts, or a combination of that and massive climate change from volcanic eruptions.
Right.
Yeah.
It was interesting that volcano. I'm not going to remember the name, but there was a volcano that went off several years ago. And someone had said that volcano put more what's the carbon? Put more carbon in the air than all of humankind in history in that one day. Is that true, or is that just something someone would post on social media to get clicks? Because that seems crazy. If that, like, it doesn't totally shock me, but that is crazy if that's a fact.
I think that's probably not true.
Yeah, it sounds a little
Clickbait.
clickbaitish, right? But it nevertheless, like, they
Volcanoes
have to emit huge amounts of
yeah, for sure.
carbon.
Volcanoes are part of the Earth's natural biogeochemical cycles.
Yeah.
There's, different elements and compounds which are cycled naturally, and sometimes they're at higher concentrations and sometimes less. They can have profound impacts on the climate through time, because the Earth's temperature has changed over time as well, for billions of years.
Like,
but that
naturally, right? Not necessarily because of humans, but like it's naturally kind of done this over the years, right?
Right. But some people take that to mean that humans are not having an effect, which is a logical fallacy. Just because one thing is true doesn't mean that something else can't be true.
You tend to what was given to us until, right? Like until you can't anymore. You don't treat it like crap because you think, hey, someone else is going to come save us anyway. It's almost like the alien thing, right? Like, we can push this as far as we need to because everyone knows if we push the nukes, the aliens are going to come in and they're going to stop them from exploding. No, they're not. They're not going to come in and stop the nukes from exploding. They're not. If they are there, if anything, they're going to sit back and watch the show. They've watched us. If they've been here since the 40s, they've watched us kill each other several times, right?
Yeah.
Like, and millions. Like, so why would they give a shit?
Yeah, they haven't. I mean, apart from the nuclear facilities stories about that they're disabling nukes, but that hasn't stopped humanity from slaughtering, millions of people in various wars and atrocities and so on. But you did raise a pretty chilling prospect, which is that, and I hadn't thought of this, but there could be people out there who see a silver lining in the end of the world, in terms of aliens. I thought of that in terms of kind of theology. Like, some people want the end of the world because that's when Christ is going to return. that sort of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
what about if some people are trying to precipitate the end of the world because they feel like the aliens are going to finally intervene?
Right.
Right. So it's kind
That's
of like
dangerous.
a form of accelerationism, as it's called, when you make things
Yes.
worse in order to, in your mind, make them better. Sort
Yeah.
of push the hands of the entities or the force that you feel is salvatory or salvific.
Right. Right. It's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
It's dangerous to think that we're going to rely on something else to save us from our own, downfall. Like that's not going to happen, folks. We either need to be better humans or it's probably not going to work out for us, just like the dinosaurs, right? And then something else will get wiped out, something else will come along and they'll get their chance.
It's like what Carl Sagan said in his Pale Blue Dot presentation when he said that the Earth is a tiny little speck in space. It's the only home that we have, and that there's no sign that anyone's going to come and save us. So we have to do this ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think of it like when I first got into the UFO thing, I was real, and I still am very interested in the potential time travel aspect of it, because I do believe that if we do ever figure out interstellar travel, we are going to have to figure out some type or form of time travel. I don't know if we would call it time travel, but it kind of would be, because like you can't travel to distant, far off places and come back in a lifetime. Like it's not going to happen, right? So we would have to figure out some way to move faster than light, which means possible, time travel. Whoops. And so I think it's possible. And so if we do figure out interstellar travel, it is possible. I think we could time travel. So with time traveling, it's the same thing. It would be maybe future generations of ourselves, but they're coming back to observe. They can't get involved because then you could, Mandela effect, like butterfly flaps its wings, chaos theory. Like you could change one thing, it could change everything. So they would just be here to observe, which is maybe why there's so little contact or whatever. And they're just coming back to be like, what did we do to ourselves? How did this all happen? That could be a part of it too. I really don't know. It's very interesting.
Although you mentioned the lifetime aspect, if it's an artificial intelligence, you wouldn't need to have life support systems, in the conventional sense. And those entities might not perceive time in the same way that we do. They could just shut themselves off for eons and then revive, and then they wouldn't feel like any time had passed. And
that's crazy.
They might not even be here to spread their progeny. They might just be here to explore or to religious reasons, or it could be anything.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't necessarily be constrained by time in the way that humans would. Like certainly if humans were going out there to explore or colonize, we'd have to find some way to get around the time issue.
Exactly.
But even then, I've thought of a possibility. I don't think it was original to me, but the idea is that there could be like some sort of mothership or some large craft which arrives at a solar system after taking like maybe thousands of years to reach there, and then it is kind of sending space probes out into the solar system that it arrives at. So those might be, who knows, that those might be UFOs, but those UFOs which we're seeing, if they are in fact alien, they might just be interplanetary. They're just coming from some source in the solar system.
Yeah. Like we send out satellites.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I did read an article about the theory that it is another civilization's AI, right? And that they send it out and they've programmed this AI to where it can actually it can use the resources around it to create other ships, and
Yeah.
other vehicles, and other drones, so they don't have to send it stuff, right? Because space is so big. So maybe that's the reason there's so many different looking, you know, you got the disc, you got the pill, you got the orbs, you got this, you got that, you got the jellyfish looking ones, right? Like, so maybe that's why we're seeing so many different ones, is because they're basically kind of heaped together by this AI and meant to explore. There's so many crazy theories like that. What is your take on 3i Atlas? Because I've been telling everybody, calm the fuck down. It's a comet. Avi Loeb is trying to get funding. This is what researchers do, right? They make a big stink, they get everybody interested, and then they get all this money thrown at them. Like, that's how you do it. What is your, now that's my take. What is your take on 3i Atlas? Have you looked into it at all?
Is that the latest interplanetary object?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's been 3 now, at least.
In our recorded history, yeah.
Yeah,
this is the third
including
one.
more
Yeah.
and more.
Yeah.
Right, which Avi Loeb also is integrally kind of involved in terms of promoting as a possible ET technology. I think that Avi Loeb's kind of exertions here are sort of a little bit strange, because he himself has doubted the UFO stories on various technical grounds. But on the other hand, he's setting up the Galileo project to like photograph one, get a good resolution picture of one. And the mechanisms involved in terms of, like, say, Oumuamua, which he thinks is like a solar sail pushed by starlight, is completely different to what you would have with a UFO entering the atmosphere of the Earth and whizzing around, which would probably require something like nuclear energy, something very powerful to do that, right? So it's a little bit incongruous. He's sort of just mashing things together. His particular positions on Oumuamua, and I guess this latest one, have been severely criticized by other astronomers. For whatever it's worth or not, the consensus seems to be in the astronomical community that these objects are, in fact, rocks, although albeit strangely shaped, or they could have a composition that explains some of the behavior. Like, apparently, like they Oumuamua, for example, accelerated away, I think, from the sun, but that could have been due to outgassing, right?
Right. Yeah, he was saying something about the gravity would have.
Yeah, that it was accelerating too much, and that it had to have been a signature of technology. But that's apparently not the case, according to most other astronomers. So on that basis, it's also a little bit questionable. I think that he's definitely riding the coattails of the UFO story, which is becoming more popular, more kind of people are thinking about it a bit more these days with the congressional hearings and so on. Obviously the New York Times article in 2017 and other media reports. So he's riding that coattail a little bit to kind of push through with his funding requests. Right. Make of that what you will, but I think that there's probably not as much to this as he thinks. That's my sense.
Yeah, it's doomsday, end of the world. That will get folks clicks, and they will base, so this Avi Loeb doing this just gave all these people so much ammunition, right? Like you had to have seen it on social media already. Yeah. That's why I did a post in the complete opposite direction, because I just was like, God, like everybody's going to jump on this because it's what we want, right? Like it's what so many people want. And, you have this guy saying, if this object doesn't show up on the other side of the sun when it's supposed to, the stock market's going to crash. What are you talking about? Oh yeah. Did you see the interview?
Yeah.
It's very, it's very interesting. He's like, I have a guy right now, he's a big investor. And if that thing doesn't come on the other side of the sun when it's supposed to, he's going to pull all of his money and markets will crash and, economies will tank and the world will go crazy, cats and dogs will get along, all this crazy stuff. And it's like, dude, you're talking about a rock in space. He wants to take Juno I'm sure you know about this, right? Like he
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
to take Juno from the Jupiter mission, and because they're not going to get anything useful out of it, right? Like just on the mission, and send it over to see if I guess they can get a snapshot of this thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like a good idea, but if you work at NASA and you're on the Juno program,
Hmm.
I don't think you're gonna be too happy about that. Just a hunch. Just a hunch. I could be wrong, but I would say if you're on the Juno team, you're probably not excited if this Joker gets your whole program derailed at the end because of a rock flying. Anyway, that it's yes, folks, if the end comes, you can't do anything about it anyway. So don't change your whole life because some guy you don't know that has a degree says, something is going to come. Love your family. Love your friends. You should treat every day like it's your last. You should take care of the planet like it's going to be around forever. Don't buy into the stuff because fear mongering, it's what they've been doing forever, right? Do you remember after 9/11, the threat colors on the news?
Mm-hmm.
God, it was like every day, and it's really strange how the messaging, I would say they like some crazy conspiracy theorists, but the consistent messaging that we get through media, since I can remember, if it's not entertainment, it's fear, right?
Yeah.
It's like, be afraid,
Yeah.
fun stuff, be afraid, cool.
Which is
stuff,
ironic because America's meant to be the home of the brave.
Right. But we're constantly afraid.
Yeah.
And we're constantly doing these things overseas that are shady, but it's in the best interests of our country. So Luna says to Joe Rogan, she doesn't know if these legacy programs are real, if these folks should get amnesty. What's your thoughts on that? Because
people who are covering up the supposed...
Yeah, because the debate in Washington now seems to be, if we really want to know the truth about these legacy programs, we're going to have to give blanket amnesty because these guys have done some very illegal, super illegal things to get the funding and everything else to keep the secrets and stuff like that. So the only way we're going to get the truth is if we give them blanket amnesty. It's that, or we're just never going to know. We're just going to get bits and pieces forever.
Sounds kind of dangerous. Sounds like a bad
precedent. Amnesty?
Yeah, I mean, if people are doing illegal things or corruption and using secrecy to try to hide that from the public, and I understand the need for secrecy,
Yeah, sure.
If there is a genuine national security concern or a classified project, you don't want the Russians or the Chinese to, understand how you're doing electronic warfare or whatever.
Right.
But if there's secrecy for other reasons, like covering up incompetence or corruption or a pork barrel program, things like that, then that shouldn't be covered up. Those people should not get immunity. And if it is aliens, then if they're covering that up, these people are covering that up, it has to be for very, very compelling reasons, that they felt like there was an existential threat to humanity.
Well, they had to have, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, it's 1940, and you find out aliens are real and you're the president. Shit, what do you do? Because you have the brightest minds telling you, if you tell people this,
flip out.
Although
the theologian that Ted Peters, and maybe your Catholic gentleman guest might have said something about this, that in fact, at least when it comes to people who believe in God, they wouldn't tend to freak out if they knew that aliens were coming here, because they could assimilate that fairly easily into their own religious beliefs.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't shatter them. So I'm kind of skeptical about the idea that we would panic. Some people would panic, but I think most people would be able to handle it. So I think that's a pretty bad.
Well, and that Brookings report was what, the late 60s, I think. So
Yeah.
things have changed, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That was the Cold War back then, so that was understandable.
Right.
Especially when you had the Soviets trying to exploit things to divide the
Anything.
American. Yeah.
Anything. Yeah. And then Hal Puthoff said on Rogan that they tried it again under Bush Jr. Did you hear about this?
No, tell me.
This is...
And around that time, I had gotten a call from somebody I knew in Washington, D.C., head of a think tank. I can't name him, but he said, I need you to come to Washington to be part of a little project, a little briefing. And I said, no, I don't have the time. Right now, I'm just too busy. He says, look, come, it'll be the most important meeting you've ever had in your life. Well, since I had him calibrated, because I had done other work with him and for the Navy and so on, I said, okay, I'll come. So I showed up there, and I saw people, some of whom I knew, including my ex-contract monitor from CIA, people from DIA, a lot of military people and so on. So he sat us all down and said, okay, here's the deal. Here's why I've invited you all here. Let's just say, he says, that the United States, Russia, and China have obtained ET craft that have crashed, and we have proof of that. Bodies that aren't human. And so the question is, can this be released to the public? What effect would it have? So I and the other people, I found out by talking to them later, we thought, oh, this is cool. I mean, maybe we can get, some kind of disclosure here. And so he said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make up a list of what would be affected in the culture with this kind of a disclosure. And by the way, at this point, we still didn't know, is he saying that that's true stuff, or is this a hypothetical, or
right.
Well, anyway. So anyway, make a list. So we came up with a long list, like, 60 items or something. You say, oh, wow, stock market might be affected, religions might be affected, whatever.
Government
affected, policies be affected, politics would certainly be affected. And then for each item, we had to give it a score from +9 to -9 as to how intense the effect would be and whether it's positive or negative. So anyway, we broke up into groups, and our group had our list of 8 or so. And so we went down our list, and it turned out that we ended up getting net negative numbers. And let me tell you why you can get negative numbers. One of the things down toward the bottom of the list, and we really got into the weeds, was, well, suppose materials from a crash retrieval of a non-human craft was given to Corporation A, but Corporation B didn't get any samples. And then years later, Corporation A is making lots of money based on what they got. Meanwhile, Corporation B has gone bankrupt. And then they find out they were excluded. Well, they're going to end up suing the corporations, suing the government. I mean, it really gets gnarly when you get into the weeds and into the details. And so, as it turns out, with our group of 8 or so, we said, we get a negative number. Well, it turned out that all the groups got negative numbers. So the outcome of that exercise was, if you're thinking about disclosure, forget it.
Was this during George Herbert Walker Bush's?
No, it was during Bush 2.
Bush 2. George Bush, rather.
George Bush, yeah.
W.
Right.
So when this was all going on, you still didn't know what they had.
Didn't know what they had.
This was
That's
just They were saying
this could be hypothetical, or he could be trying to tell us something, but he wouldn't say.
So was that the first time that Hal had conveyed that story?
Yeah, very first time was on that episode. Yeah,
and it seems like it's unclear whether it was a kind of a hypothetical or if the person who solicited him had an actual crash retrieval reality in mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would be interested to know exactly what the parameters that they looked at were, like a full list of that, and
like a lot of stories with Hal.
Yeah, any documentation would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, certainly Hal has been at this for a long time. He was part of, I believe, the Stargate psychic spy program.
Yep. Viewing.
So he was present for that. Then he was, I think, was he involved with Skinwalker with Bigelow to an extent?
Yes, in the beginning, in the very beginning. Yep.
And
he actually helped Bigelow acquire the ranch. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, interesting. So in a sense, this is something I read. Actually, no, it was Greenstreet who had mentioned this outright in his recent video, that some of the people involved in Stargate, they essentially continued their research under Bigelow, but under different guise, but they could still continue looking at sort of the consciousness and psychic aspects, because that was also taken to be present at Skinwalker and is very much part of Bigelow's interests.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting if that gaming scenario was undertaken. I mean, obviously the government has done a lot of that sort of stuff in the past in terms of gaming different scenarios. Yeah. What could happen if this happens? We need to prepare. Or what if the Russians are ahead of us in this aspect? We have to be prepared.
That's why those game theory guys get the big bucks. Yep.
Yeah. So it's certainly entirely conceivable that this is a real thing that he's talking about. Yeah. So I don't know. I can't say that it's fake or not. It seems plausible. Yeah. Why not?
Very interesting. I think that Hal is a very interesting character. I'm still convinced that the owl in The Secret of Nim is Hal Puthoff. You won't convince me otherwise. Prove me wrong. The thing with Hal, though, is that he's very good at his job, right? So I did hear that. So he tells the story in Rogan about how they found that aircraft with the remote viewing program. I'm sure you've heard the story, right? Because I know you run ufologyiscorrupt.com, and I know you've looked into research a lot of this stuff. So you know the story about how they remote viewed. They found that Russian plane that was in the middle of the forest. Okay. Apparently, we had some really high-tech satellite observation tools that were highly classified. And that's how we found the plane. But instead of letting the world know we have this technology, we remote viewed it. And that's how we found the plane.
So it was a cover for the actual technical means of intelligence that the U.S. government didn't want to disclose.
Yes, which could be happening as we speak. Like,
I hadn't thought of that, actually. Like, I was well aware of the obviously, especially now with the Yankee Blue story, but also, you know, with the Paul Benowitz saga and a couple of other things like that the government and military may use UFOs as a sort of counterintelligence ploy or a cover for actual programs. But I hadn't thought about the idea of using psychic claims as a cover for, you know, technological advances.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
You know, we can't explain how we found this thing without divulging we have this technology. Old McGonagall found it. Why wouldn't you do that? Okay, now the Kean thing. So, you know, I'm not making this up. I did want, this is about a 4-minute video, but I had to watch it to believe it. So I'm going to share it with you because it's like really weird. So I don't. Are you familiar with red panda koala, chupacabra, those guys?
Yeah.
I'd say one of the people putting out some of the best stuff in the UFO field right now. And there are these events, right, where after a conference in New York or so, like some of the movers and shakers, right, on the like second string, like some of the bigger podcast hosts, some of the bigger people putting out media, documentary filmmakers, right, they have these after events where they'll have dinners and whatnot. And I'm not saying every single one is like this. And again, I'm not going to name who it is, so I know it's a trust me, bro. But somebody who I trust, and especially because I saw the immediate effect on their behavior and their way of thinking, said that after one of these events, they were all at Leslie Kean's house, and basically Leslie Kean told them that all of these UFOs people are seeing is NHI coming back to basically witness the end of the world. There's nothing we can do about it, and the governments all know about it, and they're just kind of waiting till it happens. And my friend, our friend, it's actually everyone on here's friend. I just don't know if you know exactly French we're talking about right now. I know Doomer does. I just kind of you know it's a guy. He was really shocked by this because like it wasn't just Leslie Kean there too. Apparently there were some other like high profile UFO people there. I don't think like Lou or anyone was there, but some other like huge big names. Maybe some that are probably going to be in this too, right? Who were there, and just the setting with which this person received this information. And again, this is where you have to be careful too, because it's like cult stuff, right? There's like a whole ritual. You're at the after event of this big conference, and you guys are all here, and now you're going to hit you with this information. But this person took it really seriously and was like, no, they all believe this, and like they were shocked. They almost wanted to leave the field. They were like in a really crazy mental state. Yeah, Tupa, is there anything you want to say on that? Because you were kind of witness to some of this. Yeah.
My lover was witness to this. Yeah, there was some weird vibes. The idea of being taken or invited to like a more inner circle from another inner circle, and then being like separated, and then being told this. It's a bummer.
Whoa. Now, let's say that's true. Okay, let's say we know it for a fact that these interactions took place. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, she's already long had a overlap with like spiritualist type of beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book on that, in fact, didn't she? Was it her, or was it, am I thinking of someone else? No, but she's
sure.
No, I think she's been to like seances and things of that sort, and she believes that she spoke to somebody who died. But I mean, this stuff is just kind of getting mixed together with the UFOs, and the narratives about consciousness, and I think it's inevitable that some people are going to attach like events in society to this stuff as well, to see what is the overlap or what is the significance. And they're going to spin stories about like, well, maybe humanity's not in charge, it's somebody else, or that these other entities or beings are going to come in and save us or intervene in some way. That's inevitable. Those sorts of stories are going to spread and evolve in that direction. But I'm a little bit surprised that she would say that. Oh, sorry. Because she seems like still relatively sober-minded, at least from what I've read. Even though she got things wrong in the 2017 article, I read her book about, what is it called again? UFOs, generals, and governments or something? Something like that, yeah. And it was a pretty sober-minded book. I mean, I didn't agree with it, but still, it wasn't as crazy as some of these UFO things could be. Okay. And even though she does go into the spirit and ghost stuff,
yeah, I did see. It looks like in 2017 she wrote a book, "Surviving Death: A Journalist Investigates Evidence for an Afterlife." Yeah. Which, I mean, whatever you think of that, it's still a leap to go from that to saying that,
everyone's going to die in a few years and that these beings are just here to sort of observe it. That where is she even getting that information from? Also, this gathering that they're talking about in this podcast, doesn't that seem like a third-hand account? Like they're saying that a friend of theirs said that Kean was there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like a third.
Right,
So
right.
we have to take it for what it is, but assuming it, it really
sure.
took place.
It's still a bit surprising to me, but I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised by anything anymore.
God, right? Yeah, it's. I could see how that would, if you're in this circle and you feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting accepted amongst these, this group that I look up to, like these are the researchers that I research, and now I'm included.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big boost, right? And then you're told by these same people, listen, this is what's really going on. That could be devastating.
And I wonder as well if when you're invited into an inner sanctum and made to feel important, does that make people less discerning in terms of passing out the evidence?
I think so.
It would make them less willing to like really dig deep, because like they're given kind of the keys to the city now, and they feel like they know something that everyone else doesn't.
Right. And you trust this person already.
Yeah.
You look up to this person.
Which I think is probably how a lot of these UFO stories around Grush, people who spoke to him, and now all the psychic claims by Jake Barber and others, I think that is how basically this has evolved, is that people are telling each other stories within a relatively tight-knit circle, and then these stories take on a life of their own as they acquire elements from UFO culture or science fiction or what have you.
Yes.
And then they're retold back to the same people, but it seems to them like that an independent source is telling them, but it's actually just stories that they originated or that they contributed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, isn't that like circular type reporting, right? Like,
right.
And a lot of it is that, and it's funny, like this is the stuff Hal put off and Jim Simivan and Tim Taylor all warned Chris Bledsoe not to do. They were like, hey, if you're seeing this stuff, it's legit. Don't go to these conferences. Don't go to these things, because that's what's going to happen, right? You're going to get caught up in this circular narrative, and all of a sudden your story is going to become part of someone else or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And now that's what he's doing. I've seen him go to at least 3 or 4 conferences just this year. I think McWest came out as far as the sighting at the desert one. What was that? Contact in the Desert. He was at that one, and they did have a sighting, and McWest found an airplane that was actually in the exact same location they were all looking at. And then Chris Bledsoe, in a recent X post, somebody asked him, could you give me the location of where you were when you saw this orb? Because, I want to look it up on a map and whatnot for my own research. And the answer he gave this gentleman was that it's proprietary information.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I might have even saved the post because I thought it was that funny that where he was proprietary information. What are your thoughts on that stuff? Like,
it gets back to the religion aspect that I think UFOs have always had a sort of religious aspect, like what I talked about with the celestial savior and the other things that Ted Peters talks about. These sort of models for how people view UFOs. It could be celestial savior, it could be like a kidnap or demonic type of view about that. But so that's kind of always in the background, okay, kind of what animates it for many people. But then more recently, it seems like there's an explicitly religious iconography or imagery that's been coming back. It just goes beyond just thinking about, in some generic sense, that aliens are celestial saviors. It goes beyond that into thinking in terms of God as traditionally understood. So, you know, an explicitly theological or religious type of thinking about that. So why is that happening though? Like, what is the actual, if you like, the mechanism? It could be that people are more scared now about different things. There's maybe more of a feeling that the world might end because of threat of nuclear war, the planetary crisis to do with climate change. And so people are again looking to God as they traditionally understood him and trying to subsume UFOs into that framework. Like thinking of UFOs as sort of message leading directly to God instead of seeing the UFOs themselves as the gods.
So we're like in the middle of this religion that's already became, you have realism, right? And realism is a legitimate religious organization. You can call them a cult, but they are a religion. You know, it's the same thing you could say about like Scientology. Like you can call them a cult, but it is, you know, the United States recognizes it as a religion. Unarius Academy of Science, Nation of Islam, which is a big one. God's Salvation Church, Order of the Solar Temple. So like the Valais, Do It Ouncer, Valley of the Dawn. So there's like a lot of them that are actually recognized as real religions.
How many of them have got street preachers though?
You mean like people out there like trying to spread the word, that kind of thing, like missionaries?
Yeah. But I guess there are a few, right, where people do that. But I'm thinking more in terms of, you know how like a lot of Christian folks will sort of stand on the corner of the street and talk about Christ. Yeah. I don't know that too many UFO-centric people are doing that yet, but I could see that happening.
I see it in spaces.
In spaces, but online, but not on the literal street.
No, not yet. Yeah, no, right. You go to a fair, you'll get handed a pamphlet on, you know, God and check out this church on Sunday. But yeah, we're not seeing it for the UFO stuff yet. But again, they're still sussing it out, right? Like maybe once they get to that point, we're at full blown religion. Wow. Yeah, and it really did. A lot of it changed after Roswell. I mean, when a paper comes out and says we have a flying disc, and then the next day they say, "Oops, just kidding." I mean, of course.
Roswell at the time, it wasn't such a huge story. Like it did get spread on the wire, like the AP wire,
right?
But it wasn't a culturally defining event. At the time, it was more like when Moore and Friedman and others resuscitated it in the late 70s, early 80s, right? That it really became a cultural icon because it kind of slept for decades. And then some of the witnesses and people around the event kind of were interviewed again. And then the story more became tied in with the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Yeah. But at the time, there wasn't, I don't think there was, they talked about a flying disc in the newspaper. I think the base, the next day they said it was actually a balloon, but initially they said it was a disc.
Yeah, but RAAF captures disc or something, yeah.
Yeah. The disc idea wasn't predominantly tied in with extraterrestrials at that in the early days of ufology. Right. Because Kenneth Arnold, who had seen the 9 shiny objects near Mount Rainier, I think his initial belief was that it was Russian or that the government was testing exotic craft.
Jets or something, yeah.
And I think later on he hypothesized that they could be living organisms, like living in the atmosphere. But early on, the UFO story wasn't so much about alien visitors, although there were some people saying that, but that was really a narrative that built up later on, like kind of in the 1950s. It became much more prevalent.
Yeah. I was actually That was one of my first thoughts when I first started researching, like, really researching like UFO research, experiences and stories and stuff like that. Is that maybe these things are like living beings, right? Like the ocean is huge, has all these weird looking creatures, right? I mean, if you really stop and look at a jellyfish, like they're a trip, and there's a lot of deep sea life that some we haven't even seen, yet. And it made me wonder if maybe there's like higher atmosphere or stratospheric type of life or biology that we just don't quite understand yet. We haven't studied it. We haven't, we don't really have a need to, because it doesn't really affect much as far as we can tell. Maybe that explains some of it, but I don't know. What have you ever looked into that? There was a guy that wrote a book in the 70s. Let me see. But have you ever given that much credence?
Not credence. I've heard of it, heard of the idea, and
Okay.
but I doubt it, because to have such organisms of that size, you would have to have an ecosystem. You would have to have a population of those organisms. And where are they getting all the energy? And are they part of a food chain? Are they part of a food web? Right? Where are the nutrients coming from? It just becomes too speculative. Like you could say, like they get their energy from the sun, but then what does that mean in practical terms? They still have to synthesize their tissues and so on. How do they propel themselves? That would require a lot of energy. So considerations like that make me very skeptical.
But the crazy thing is, like, we got that close under Bush Jr., and you would think Trump, why does he care? Why wouldn't he just, with all the heat he's getting about Epstein and everything else, like this would be a godsend for him to be like, oh, by the way, we have aliens. You know what I mean? Because they're not talking about Trump for a while after that. They're talking about what that's all the media is going to cover 24/7 for months. Right. So it's like, why would he not just put it out there? Because according to Jim Simivin, it's a 100% complete executive decision. It is the executive branch. It is the president of the United States gets to make this call.
Yeah. Trump has actually previously said that he doesn't particularly believe in UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
So that all leads me to believe that there's nothing hidden in terms of aliens. Obviously, there's secret projects, but there's always been secret projects in the U.S. government.
Right.
I mean, those continue. It would be a national scandal if he just blithely used those as, to distract from Epstein, etc.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about Trump. It's not like.
Yeah, but he will get a lot of pushback from the Pentagon.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
and veterans and people like that. I think there are constraints. I mean, Trump can't just do anything he wants, even though sometimes it seems like he can and he does.
It does seem that way a lot, yeah.
But for sure, I think if there were aliens, he would be very tempted to reach into that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like it just seems so weird. This would be, well, actually a few weeks ago would have been the perfect time, but it would have been the perfect time to drop that bomb on the American people, because we would have been so shell shocked from that. We wouldn't give a shit about Epstein or any of that. Right. Like at least not for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting data point.
Interestingly, some MAGA folks would not be taken in by that because they are pushing back against Trump in terms of Epstein. So like Candace Owens and Alex Jones was literally crying because he was saying that Trump is now defending pedophiles.
I saw that. So
there are splits and factions within MAGA, and they wouldn't all be taken in. So yeah, I mean, even there's some limits.
It's amazing in the UFO community. As soon as Cash came out and said, and Bondi came out and said, oh, there's no list, there's nothing to release, after for years saying there was.
Yeah.
In the UFO community specifically, people are talking about Epstein involved with gravity research, Epstein involved with CIA anti-gravity stuff. And it's like, if we're talking about Epstein and gravity, we're not talking about the Epstein Pam Bondi had stacks, and she had to ask for volunteers to watch the videos because nobody wanted to watch the videos, and she blew out an eyeball and had to get eye surgery because, you know, all these videos that she's watching, all this crazy shit. I have all this stuff, it's going to come out. What happened?
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because, like, for years they're saying we have this, and then when it comes time to put your cards on the table, we don't have that.
The galling thing. Oh, there's many galling things, but one of them is that Trump is now pretending that Democrats put this out. That this is just
the victims are Democrats.
No, not the victims. Or maybe the victims.
He did imply that. Yeah.
Because Trump doesn't really care about victims. In fact, he gives more well wishes to Ghislaine Maxwell than he does any of the victims. God. But my point about Democrats is that he's acting like the Dems were out in front of this whole thing, when in fact it was mostly the MAGA people saying that there's this whole vast, linking it to, like, in some cases, like Pizzagate as well. So kind of QAnon adjacent. But I mean, yeah, I mean, if there is a Epstein list, then definitely the American people should know about that. This is monstrous.
Oh, there's a list.
Yeah,
there's a list. There's videos. There's
definitely a lot of information that hasn't been released. But you know, the only justification that I can think of to not release it is if somebody was adjacent to Epstein, but they weren't actually partaking in child abuse, but it might look like they were because they were his friend or something like that. And so sometimes that stuff is not entirely clear from documents, right? So you don't want to put anybody in danger. Like, some people would be, you know, implicated or in some way, but they might be innocent. But that's the only reason I can think of to not just do a huge data dump.
Yeah.
So there should be some care in that, but still, it has to all come out eventually.
Right.
And whoever is on it, Democrats or Republicans, I don't really care. Because, like, if you're abusing, then you know, really fuck these people.
Right. Thank you. And that was a debate I actually got into. I was like, I don't give a fuck about Epstein and gravity. Like, I don't care. This dude was literally raping little with other grown ass men, powerful men. These were victims, right? And it's just like all the stuff you said you stood against, right? All the stuff you got all your followers to say was wrong, you're in it. And so you can't release it. That's my theory. I mean, I don't even think it's a theory. I think that's just probably what's going on, is he's in it, doesn't want to be in it, at least not while he's president. So kick the can down the road. Maybe the next president will put it out. I don't know, but it's bullshit. It's just straight bullshit.
And you mentioned the Epstein and anti-gravity. I hadn't actually heard that, but Epstein does. I mean, there is some fairly compelling evidence that he was connected in some way to intelligence, maybe to Mossad, blackmail and stuff like that. So I can definitely believe that. But I think it's completely a distraction to then go into anti-gravity. I mean, that's kind of absurd.
Exactly. And like, I get it. It's something it's something that folks want to know so badly. I understand. I want to know the truth as well. But it's so divisive, right? It can be divisive just like religion can be divisive. And that's like kind of what Pasolka is saying in her book, is like, look, ufology is a religion. It's becoming religion. So like, before Christianity was Christianity, you had all these theologians and intelligent people debating what goes in the book, what doesn't go in the book, what stays, what doesn't stay. And we're actually in the middle of that right now with ufology. It's becoming and is a religion. There have already been a few spin-off religions, what a professor of religious studies would call an actual religion, not a cult. There's 2 or 3 of them that have spun off from ufology. So it's almost becoming a religion. And so just like you can use Jesus or Satan to divide people, right? You got to pick a side. It's almost like they can now do the same thing, like, oh, Epstein was in on anti-gravity, so now we got to look at him through that lens, right? Not through the lens that we should be looking at him through, or like you say, potential, and it's not just you, a lot of people have said this, potential Mossad agent, which makes perfect sense because they've been known to try to get dirt on our politicians. It's a known thing. I mean, it's the same stuff most countries do because intelligence is intelligence and you can never have enough of it, especially if you're in the United States.
And by the way, you reminded me, you were talking about Avi Loeb earlier.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about the religion aspect. Avi Loeb himself has got some kind of religious inclinations towards aliens. He's outright said that if they were to come here or we were to discover them, it would be basically the greatest thing ever. It would be wonderful and all the rest of it. I mean, there's no way to know that.
But, right. Like, how could you know that?
It's a commitment. It's a sort of ideological commitment. And it's basically seeing, again, the aliens having a salvific quality to them, that they're going to come and maybe just inadvertently because their technology could be really awesome and we could copy it, or because they're great people themselves and they want to help us. But either way, they're seen as sort of the saviors of humanity.
Well, I'll tell you, I think the only one that's going to save humanity is humanity. It's just my opinion. The Supreme Court allowed Mississippi to start requiring age verification for social media. Critics, I believe, are saying that it's a violation of our First Amendment right. Have you heard about this at all?
No, I hadn't, but I suppose it would, the side I would fall on would just be which side has got the better arguments. And I guess you could make an argument for both sides because there is so much, there's so much abuse and things out there on social media that, you could argue that really young people shouldn't be exposed to that, or they shouldn't be targeted, for example, or doxxed, which there's a huge risk of if you're on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Things of that sort. But then there's also, young people still have got their rights to free speech and to give their opinion and to engage. So, I mean, just off the top of my head, I guess I will tend to fall into the latter category, just protecting free speech, accepting some of the risks, I suppose, if you could put it that way. But I'd have to see the arguments that have been presented for that. And I don't know why Mississippi, was it the Mississippi Supreme Court or the U.S. Supreme Court?
The U.S. Supreme Court upheld it.
Oh, I see.
So I have a few bullet points. Maybe this will help. So the law requires all users to verify their ages before using common social media sites from Facebook to Nextdoor. Clarence Thomas held that requiring adults to verify their age prior to using sexually explicit sites did not violate the First Amendment's free speech clause because it is important to shield children from sexually explicit content. In addition to the age verification rule, the Mississippi law requires social media websites to work to prevent children from accessing, quote, harmful materials, and prohibits minors from using social media websites such as Instagram and YouTube without parental consent. So there was a suit filed by a company called NetChoice. They argued that it violates the First Amendment guarantee of free speech, Their argument was basically that it is within the parents' interest to protect their children from harmful content, but there are tools such as web browser parental controls that parents can use to regulate their children's online use. Justice Brett Kavanaugh concluded with the court's order Thursday. He wrote, quote, in short, under this court's case law as it currently stands, the Mississippi law is likely unconstitutional. Nonetheless, because net choice has not sufficiently demonstrated the balance of harms and equities favors it at this time, I concur in the court's denial of the application for interim relief. So even though the judge said it's probably unconstitutional, the net choice didn't, I guess, bring up the right argument or a good enough argument or whatever, and so it upheld.
Yeah. It sounds like some things that are being lumped together. So obviously should be
the age thing,
protected from, pornography and sexually explicit material and that sort of thing. But there are ways to do that and also kind of ensure, maybe not guarantee, but help protect their freedoms as well to speech. So this is, I think, Republicans. I'm guessing it was Republicans who were pushing for this, but
it's Mississippi, so most likely.
yeah. So they sometimes leaned into the protection angle in terms of like pornography, etc., and then attached it to something else that they're concerned about. And so if somebody is against their position, then these Republicans can just say, oh, you're trying to protect us, or you're trying to expose to sexually explicit content. It's not the
easy win. Yeah.
But I have to look more into that case. But definitely it sounds like, it's a little bit striking that one of the justices is outright admitting that it's unconstitutional, yet we're still going to do it.
Crazy stuff. Now, I asked this in a space on X, which was highly, there was a lot of MAGA supporters in this space, and they were talking about the federal troops in DC. Is this how it's going to be? Like the federal government's going to go into every city that has a problem with crime and homelessness and tell the cops basically how to do their job? Is that what's happening? What are we starting here? What is this? Because deploying troops, U.S. troops into U.S. cities is something most presidents have tried to avoid if they can. I think back in memory to the times I've seen actual troops, the Democratic convention in Chicago, that went really well, right?
And the LA riots.
Right? So what are we doing here? What is the long game?
I think that this is not really about crime, addressing crime. It's about fascist spectacle. So one thing that strongmen and aspiring dictators like Trump do is they want the population to be focused on fear, which we talked about as well in this podcast, and to have a punching bag and to have a simplistic explanation for everything. So with this crime narrative that Trump pushes, ironically, he himself is a criminal. He was actually found guilty by a court of law.
Yeah.
And he continuously empowers criminals, corporate criminals. He deregulates for their benefit. He
like white-collar criminals.
Yeah, gutted the CFPB, which is the anti-scam police. Yeah. I think he also has not outright gutted, but downgraded the Government Accountability Office.
Yeah,
and I think a couple of others. He appointed a criminal as the convicted criminal who had served time in prison as ambassador of France, who had filmed his own brother having sex, I think, with a prostitute, and then used it as blackmail. So all that sort of thing. And France is one of our most valued allies, and it's
and most critical of us as well. I love the French.
It's true.
They'll tell us where to stick it.
that could be part of the reason he chose that guy. But I'm just pointing out the irony there about crime.
Yeah.
But it's really about fascist spectacle and this feeling that a lot of people in America have, that they want to punch down against other people. Maybe because they've had it rough themselves. They want to see the undocumented people getting tossed out, even if families are broken up.
It's just
you know,
heartbreaking, isn't it? You see
yeah,
these videos, it's just heartbreaking because it's like you're raiding a Home Depot parking. Like, why don't you raid a crack house or something? Like, why are you raid? Like, these guys are trying to go to work.
even if, I mean, it was illegal for them to come in, that part is illegal. And obviously the government should have the final word on if somebody gets to stay or not, but we can have that debate on how to address it. And there are ways to do it more humanely. My own personal solution, it's not a total solution, but it would be better than this, would be to do what Ronald Reagan did, which is to give a general amnesty to people who are already here, who are contributing
Republican
to
president.
the economy. Yep, Republican president.
Mm-hmm.
If you're contributing to the economy, if you don't do crime, right, you're not engaged in
Pay your
criminal
taxes.
activity, even though your initial act of coming here was an illegal act,
Yes.
then that should be taken into account and you should be given citizenship. Maybe you could also add some other requirements, like you have to take English vocation classes or something like that. We can debate that.
Yeah, or like the regular stuff you have to do for citizenship, because yeah, I mean the idea is to become a part of the country, not change the country into where you came from, like we're seeing in some European countries. It's terrifying. So it's about crime. It's not about crime. It's about fascism and rage. Is that what you're thinking?
Punching down on other people and dividing people and distraction, really, here is the name of the game, because it's not the undocumented people who are making the lives of white working class people worse. It's the billionaires who are funding Trump, and who Trump is empowering more and more, giving them more power and even more wealth, which they've already got too much of. And the enemy here is those guys. They don't give a crap about the working class.
No,
they don't give a crap about any of the people that Trump pretends to care about.
Right.
And it's really the undocumented folks actually have got more in common with the white working class people who vote for Trump.
What I thought was interesting was the amount of support he got from the Latino community.
Yeah,
was much larger than I had expected.
But they wanted economic relief is really the main reason they voted for Trump.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't so much that they love him or that they think he's a great guy. It's that they were desperate for somebody to kind of, and many people felt this as well. The economy under Biden wasn't as terrible as MAGA makes it out to be, but it wasn't heaven on earth either.
Right.
And so many people were struggling, and to an extent the Democrats were kind of tone deaf to that. They kept putting out statistics as though somebody who's actually struggling is going to be comforted by, the stock market is up or whatever, employment is up, but what if I've got a crappy job and I can't pay my rent? That doesn't, it's not going to resonate, right? So a lot of people just went for Trump because he seemed to be giving a more kind of genuine message that resonates with people at a kind of emotional level, or that speaks to their immediate concerns about grocery prices, which again is ironic because he's actually destabilizing the economy, and prices I don't think have gone down across the board like he said that they would.
Some have, some are getting even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the problem, I think, is inflation, right? And I think during COVID, when you send a bunch of money to people, right, like the entire population, a bunch of money that wasn't earned, that's going to cause inflation, right? I mean, at least a part of it, wouldn't it? I mean,
I don't know.
I'm not an economist, but I think, like, okay, if you flood the country with extra money, demand for everything's going to go up, so cost for everything's going to go up. So we're not really fixing it's actually making things worse. It's making things cost more because now everybody has the money to get the stuff. So we got to.
depends how you handle it, though, because Kamala Harris was pushing for price controls on certain items, which are important, to families, like certain food items. She
Right.
wanted to put price controls on those, but Republicans were denouncing that as communism. Even though she wanted to prevent like price gouging, which many of the same Republicans, at least MAGA folks, are complaining about, that the elites are price gouging us, but when somebody tries to stop that, they call it communism.
Right.
Which
Isn't
been
that
a
interesting?
perennial problem with these debates about the economy is that when Democrats do something to help the working and middle class, it's denounced as socialism or communism. But then Trump gives a message which seems to be pro-working class, but then he doesn't actually do much to help those folks when he's in power. He overwhelmingly helps the billionaires and the super rich. They do pretty good, but then other people don't do as good.
It's like that chicken farm. Did you hear about that? ICE went, raided the chicken farm.
Yep.
And then the owner of the chicken farm calls the White House. He's like, "Hey, I can't, you're going to put me out of business. I can't even."
Yeah.
And so they brought them back under amnesty, right? And so so if you're white, rich, and have enough money, maybe white's not even the thing anymore. Maybe it's just rich and have enough money. You can call it and get that problem fixed. Well, for, Bob's Chicken Shack that, works in a small town or whatever that has a couple of illegals in the field, they're not going to get that same treatment, right?
Yeah.
ICE is going to come and take their employees and they're going to be fucked. Like, because they don't have the White House's number. They don't donate $1 million to President Trump or whatever. So there's no long-term thinking, right? It's just Band-Aids and what makes you feel good. And that's not how you run a country of 400 million, almost 400 million people. The sending federal troops into cities and nobody really giving a shit about it is what really bothers me.
It's also conservatives, they've long made this hay about being against government overreach and the dangers of violating the Posse Comitatus Act and of excessive presidential power, right? But when Trump is using federal troops to supposedly police crime-ridden cities, or his grabbing more power for himself, then somehow they go along with it.
Less government, but yeah, send the feds to my city because we have to homeless people. Like, what are the feds going to do with the homeless people? What do you think they're going to do that local police hasn't already tried?
And he's also warning, I think he was telling, I forget which city it was in, it might have been Washington, but he wants to ship a bunch of homeless people out, and he was warning them to get out before the cops or the troops come in. But
and go where?
Homeless people don't have the means, and they often don't have the information channels to even know about that a message is being put out.
No.
So again,
and when Obama tried to get him a cell phone, they called him a communist. Sometimes I think we put too much on like what a president can do and can't do. Like they could ruin the planet, they could ruin the country. I've heard that all my life. Oh God, he got elected. There goes the country. Don't blame me. I voted for this person. Don't blame me. I voted for that person. But it seems like life just kind of continues on. America just kind of continues on. And I just wonder, am I too worried about it? Because I think about this upcoming meeting today. I think it's today with today or tomorrow with Putin and Trump, one-on-one meeting in Alaska. And I'm concerned. I just don't, you could have either the end of the Ukraine war and maybe some peace, or you could start World War III. I feel like both of those are completely possible in this meeting.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That was very profound. And I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on. Most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway.
There's not going to be peace in Ukraine if unless Ukraine secedes to is that the word consents to allowing its territory to be assimilated into Russia.
Right.
So, I mean, you can call it peace, but Ukraine still has to be on board with it. And if Ukraine's shut out of these negotiations, if it's just between the US and Russia, I don't think that's going to go anywhere. You know, appeasing Putin is not the way to achieve peace. We saw that how that happened with Hitler. You know, politicians in France and England thought that they could buy off Hitler by ceding to him certain territories in other countries, but then that just whetted his appetite for more. I think Putin has got an existential view of the West, which is that as long as the West is prosperous and democratic, his own regime is at risk, because then the Russian people have got something to aspire to, which is beyond what he can offer, right? So that's why he can't abide a free and democratic Ukraine. And it's very dangerous for Trump to be playing games with Ukraine like that, because it gives Putin the hope that he can get away with more in the future.
Yeah. Because
say that he attacks Moldova or some other country, or a NATO member.
Well,
then what are people going to say then? Are they just going to be, well, we should negotiate again, and then the next time it happens, well, we're going to negotiate again, and where does it end?
Well, and that's what he did with Georgia, right? He just went in there and took it, but the world didn't do anything. We just sat there and watched him take Georgia, and I think he thought that's what was going to happen with Ukraine too. The video from the White House with Zelensky and Trump and Vance, nightmare. I mean, if that's how we're negotiating, I'm a little worried.
In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel. We signed ceasefire. All of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that, he broken this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country? Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
He wants assurances because he says, look, we've had ceasefires before and they're bullshit. They're worth the paper that they're printed on, right? Because they just break them. And they just run their operations anyway. So he wants assurances. And Trump very much seems opposed to guarantees, right? Like he's like, look, we'll negotiate. Something happens, but we're going to take their word for it, acting like history doesn't matter. Like history matters, dude, because they've done this before. And you had Zelensky saying that, like, look, he's done this 26 times. He has said he's going to do this, signs it at the UN, and then does the exact opposite. He shows Trump's pictures of their soldiers that they're getting back malnourished, beaten, broken bones, like women, children, and Trump's just like, he doesn't care. Just whatever. It's frightening. It's almost like he gets along better with Putin than Zelensky. And Zelensky and Ukraine want to join NATO, and NATO's there because of Russia. The fuck is going on, Luis? Like, what is going on? I'm so confused. Like, how do you see this playing out? Like,
I think that Ukraine will continue fighting with European support. Europe has got to really kick in. I mean, they have been providing a lot of support, but not enough. And if the US just withdraws all support for Ukraine, then Europe has to pick up the slack.
well,
and they have to, because that's their
totally
own
true.
security and existence at stake as well.
Right.
So I think that will compel them to do more. On the other hand, you do have kind of pro-Putin political parties in Europe, which sometimes win elections and or have influence. So there's dangers there as well. But that's the risk of living in a democracy, is that you have to risk the other side winning an election. So I mean, but I don't know what's going to happen. I hope that obviously that Ukraine does recover all those territories, although I fear that they might not be able to. I doubt that they can recover Crimea anytime soon.
No.
Yeah, so that's obviously.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, Russia's had troops there, killing people and pushing into that line for, God, like, since there's been a Ukraine, and then they blame it on Nazis because Ukraine has a Nazi party or whatever,
right?
Which they do. But like you said, that's the dangers of having a democracy. if the people are
the far right in Ukraine has got very little political support. So
right, it's very small. Yeah,
it's completely disingenuous to point to that as there being like a Nazi presence in Ukraine as any reason to not support Ukraine.
Right.
Because in fact,
you could say there's a Nazi presence here.
Yeah, and in Russia, which is actually arguably the world's neo-Nazi capital. The Kremlin, the Kremlin uses neo-Nazi and fascist and racist gangs and auxiliaries as part of its military operations to stir up trouble and things like that. So they've got a long involvement with that. They've also got a very ultra-nationalist party, which has got more relative support in Russia than the far right does in Ukraine.
Right.
And of course, Putin's own policies are becoming increasingly fascist. And he also has leaned into anti-Semitism, history denial, things like that. Zelensky is himself Jewish or part Jewish. He lost members of his extended family were killed by the Nazis in World War II. And yeah, so there's a lot of ironies there, a lot of disinformation. Ironically, the people who say that we shouldn't support Ukraine because they're Nazis are in fact advocating that Nazi-like war crimes be perpetuated on Ukrainians by Russia. Because without defense, they can't defend themselves against the extermination of their intelligentsia, the destruction of their cultural heritage, the kidnapping of their children, the rape of their women, etc., etc. All these things that Russia is doing, which probably amounts to genocide.
God.
But really, the grotesque display at the White House when Zelensky was there, where Trump and Vance ambushed him, that was really catering towards the isolationist wing of MAGA. That they don't want to get involved in any foreign entanglements at all. And obviously there's some, argument to be made for that. I think that America shouldn't just blindly go into war or start wars. I mean, that's obvious. But it doesn't mean that America can go it alone. It doesn't mean that America shouldn't support democratic friends and allies around the world.
Now so I'm gonna be straw man here. Okay. So Ukraine is not part of NATO.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine is directly on the border with Russia. So if you're with Russia, you would say if they join NATO, potentially your biggest threat because they're right on your border. Ukraine has, I think, one of the the largest nuclear reactors, you know, in the world as far as generating power and whatnot. They were part of Russia. They used to be a part of Russia. And they keep getting closer and closer to joining NATO. And you know, if they join NATO, they can get weapons even closer. So was Putin wrong for saying, look, I'm taking it back, because if you join NATO, then, you know, my enemy is at my front door, like right there. I can't have that. What would be your response to that?
So there's multiple responses to that. One of them is that Ukraine actually relinquished its nuclear weapons after the fall of the Soviet Union and gave them to Russia. I wouldn't say gave them back, because different republics within the Soviet Union had their own industrial capabilities, and they manufactured weapons and things. So, but those were under Ukrainian command, those nukes, and they were then given to Russia as like a part of a deal that if we give them to you, you will never invade us. And obviously that hasn't happened. Ukraine gave every single nuke to Russia, and Russia has still invaded. Another point is that NATO in Europe is a defensive organization. Russia has never attacked a country, never invaded a country which is part of NATO, but it has attacked countries and in fact maintained a tyrannical domination over them during the Cold War of countries that were not part of NATO. So this is the reason that countries join NATO voluntarily. America is sometimes actually quite reluctant to allow countries to join NATO, but they're basically begging to get in because they know of the threat living on Russia's border and what Russia has done to them in the past, that they need some security guarantee and a security umbrella to prevent that from ever happening again. I mean, just talk to any Polish person or Latvian or Lithuanian or Estonian if they would rather just be by themselves or part of NATO. NATO, if it was involved in a war, it would be a war started by Russia, because NATO's posture is defensive. It's reactive. So it would respond if Russia attacked, but it wouldn't be and this prevailed throughout the entire Cold War. It wasn't designed to spearhead an invasion into Russia.
Right.
So it's not an offensive organization, although it was involved in the Libyan campaign, which we can argue about that. But that was in another theater. It wasn't Europe. But within Europe, NATO's role is purely defensive. That's recognized by everybody there. Russia has been most aggressive when there have been democratic openings in its neighboring countries, like in Georgia, in Ukraine. That's when it's made the most noise and the most threat to those countries. It's not about that they fear NATO as such. It's that the democratic openings then open up an example that the Russian people can't be allowed to aspire to, because then that threatens the Putinist regime, right? Just the existence of democracy on Russia's border is enough for them to consider it to be a threat. You know, Finland has, during the Cold War, it actually kind of held back on its criticisms of the Soviet Union and its arrangements with the United States, because it's right on the border. They just wanted good relations with the Soviets, even though the Soviets had invaded them different times. But now that they're part of NATO, they can have a full democratic discourse in their country without having to worry about Russia. So nobody should be living under the cloud of what is convenient for Russia. Russia is the biggest country in the world by territory. People who think that it's okay for them to invade and steal Ukrainian territory are, in essence, saying that Russia should get even bigger.
Right.
I mean, that's just insane.
And
again, where does it end?
Oil.
Yeah, it's got so much natural resources. Its own failings are its own fault.
Yeah.
And the problem in Russia is not NATO or American hegemony, it's the Russian regime.
So do you think maybe on the other end of it, this helps Putin on multiple fronts, right? Like one, a lot of countries don't want to get away from their leader during war. Two, he's able to send all the
Yeah.
conscribes that he doesn't like to go die, right? Instead of feeding them every day in his prisons or whatever. Distraction, third, right? Like, you're not talking about the other shit he's doing if we're in the middle of a war. Power, right? To negotiate. Everybody's wanting to negotiate with him, so he's in high demand or whatever. So I see how it could work, why Putin is motivated to do this for like several reasons, because that's just, you know, you look at his history and the groups he was involved with, like that's how he looks at it. He's old school Soviet, you know, Union guy. So
the company he keeps, North Korea, the Assad regime, which fell in Syria, these unsavory characters that Russia is aligned with, that speaks to just the nature of the regime, its hostility to democracy, because Russia can get along with democracies, you know, to an extent. They can have friendly relations or trade, but at the end of the day, they still fear the democratic system because, again, that gives the Russian people something to aspire to, which is better than what the regime can give them. But yeah, certainly Putin has had a lot of reasons to do his war, which benefit him. But it also destabilizes the regime because, first of all, it causes a lot of discontent among mothers and family who have lost their sons in a war that's looking increasingly pointless and unwinnable. Not that Ukraine is going to get everything that it wants, but Russia certainly isn't either. Russia has got, Ukraine as well, but Russia has got a demographic decline, and this is exacerbated by the war. I think something like 1 million men have died on the Russian side or have been wounded, dead or wounded, but put out of action.
Zelensky in the White House said they've killed over 700,000 Russians.
Yeah, and I can believe that, because the thing about the Russian way of war is that even though the Russian regime has invested a lot in technology and research and development, these programs are often kind of artisanal in that you can build like a stealth fighter, but can you make it in large quantities? And Russia has got so much corruption and so much brain drain now that, yeah, they can make a really fancy tank or fighter jet, but they can't really, that doesn't really translate into gains on the battlefield. So they still rely a lot on older technology. They still rely on just not giving a shit about their own soldiers.
Yeah.
And
well, I don't think they even throw their, like, I really feel like a lot of the soldiers in Ukraine aren't even their top tier soldiers. Maybe a few of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were sending criminals and, you know, conscribes over there. So I always felt like this is just Putin getting rid of the people he doesn't want around. Yeah. And so it's a win for him there too. I mean, this is a country that had the gulag, for God's sakes, you know?
Yeah.
So.
And he actually said, I forget what it was. I think it was in the late 90s, could have been the early 2000s. He said that the fall of the Soviet Union was the greatest geopolitical cataclysm that ever happened in the 20th century.
Yeah.
So that's how he views things from his KGB days.
Yes.
His thinking, in Russia, there's a stratum of people who are called the Chekists. So this is named after the Cheka, which is the Bolshevik secret police.
Okay.
So Lenin, when he came to power after the 1917 revolution, set up a secret police to crush opposition to the Bolsheviks. And you know, they went through various iterations of what they were called, like the KGB or the NKVD, various other names in their history, but essentially their function was always the same, which was to root out dissent, protect the state, or really the political party, which was the Communist Party during the Soviet Union, but now it's Putin's party, and destabilize Russia's adversaries or countries that they want to destabilize for various reasons. And so the function has really remained the same. He really admires the Soviet Union. I think he said that he wants to revive it.
Yes, he has said that. Yeah.
But he's also leaned into kind of the Orthodox Christian garb. So he's not presenting himself as a communist. He's presenting himself as a sort of traditional family values type of Russian, and close to the church. Okay. So this kind of gets to why a lot of MAGA or some MAGA folks admire Russia, or they see Putin as sort of role model for what America should be, and why they don't mind, or they even want, they outright
It's because they think
Trump
Putin's
to
like
be
a
dictator.
Christian.
Yeah, well, there's that. So they think that Putin represents Christianity more than like the liberal establishment. They already think that Kamala Harris and Biden are Satan, right? And so, but they believe that Trump is like basically sent by God to save America, which is crazy because Trump is the most sacrilegious and whoremongering president ever, most corrupt by far. But they think
I don't know how you could think that a guy that raw dogs a porn star while his wife's pregnant is a savior, but okay.
They do manage to contort themselves using kind of some sort of pretzel logic to, to believe that Trump is basically a savior, or at least he's like a emissary from God, or that God is using him.
Look, I'll give him this, okay? If the goal was throw some TNT into DC and see what happens, mission accomplished.
Oh yeah.
And I really think that's what it was. I think people are just so tired of hearing one thing and getting another. They were like, fuck it, man. And then when Biden came in after Trump, when they told us the world was going to end when Trump was president the first time, and it didn't. And then Biden came in and things weren't so hot. And look, I have a great amount of respect for Joe Biden and what he's done for this country. I think he, like many men, he makes mistakes, but I think as far as his work goes, as far as what he's done for this country and the legislation he's been a part of, I think he's put his heart and soul in it and has always had good intent and has wanted what's best for this country. I really do believe that. Do I agree with every decision? Absolutely not. I think he's a big part of why our jails look like they look right now is because of Joe Biden. But I think that when people saw Trump become president, we didn't become Russian. World War III didn't happen. The end of the world didn't happen. Biden comes in, economy starts getting worse. You can't even understand what the president's saying half the time. You're not even sure if it's really him. Like there's rumors going around about a body double and shit, because he's so old and unhealthy. And so, yeah, they're like, you know what? This is what we were trying to avoid the first time with Trump. Let's fuck it. Throw him back in there. Like we're tired of being told one thing and getting the other. But now,
yeah, but who was
Trump
saying
in there and there's no Epstein list. So it's the same shit.
But to push
Same
back
crap.
on something you said, it wasn't Biden saying that there was a body double. It was the Republican propaganda machine doing
Right.
that.
Oh yeah. But I mean, it was out there, right? Like people were not sure. And I remember seeing a lot of posts like this guy's 6 foot whatever, and this guy's 6 foot whatever. And they don't, I don't know. It's probably nonsense, but just the fact that it's out there because, the gentleman's certainly, I think, a little too old to be president. Like,
I think that's definitely the age thing, which is ironic again because Trump is already showing signs of, dementia.
It's a very demanding job. Very demanding.
He's saying things which are completely bonkers, and
well, he's always done that.
yeah, but it seems to be getting worse. I think.
Really? Like what?
Psychologists are pointing to like statements he's made, forgetting people's names, saying things which are just blatantly ridiculous, even for him.
Yeah.
But anyway, Biden was, I think, definitely getting a bit too old, to put it mildly. And the Democrats really, they were really, what's the expression?
Desperate?
No, not desperate. It's when you're sort of you keep pushing and like playing chicken. Is that it? Like you're doing something really dangerous and like you don't really take off your foot until it's too late. That's what they did with when they put in Kamala Harris as the candidate.
Oh God, buddy. I'll be honest. Having just like I have a basic understanding of how the country works, how the republic works, right? Very simple, basic understanding. But even I, with my simple understanding and below average IQ, noticed that you can't give one person in the primary all your electoral votes, just shift them over to somebody. Like, that's not democracy. You got all the electoral votes for Biden and then you just give them to Cam. Like, that's so.
The Democratic Party is actually very undemocratic in its internal politics.
Yes, like the Bernie Sanders and Hillary thing. That was another one.
Bitten them in the butt.
Yes.
Especially like when they rightfully accuse Trump of trying to destroy democracy, which he's trying to do, but then they're doing a little bit the same within their party. That kind of takes a bit of the power away from their argument and their thrust. Yeah. They sort of do things that they shoot themselves in the foot a lot of the time. Kamala was, in any case, she was put in way too late. And by then, right. I think there was no way that Biden was going to win, despite what he pretends.
Right.
But Kamala, she might have had a chance if she'd gone in earlier. But the Dems just kept on doing this, playing
if
chicken until
it was too late. Earned those electoral votes, I think it would have been different. Maybe. But
yeah, possibly.
She didn't, and it was a complete blowout. And I think that's why. Because, even people that wanted to support their side or whatever, I think a lot of, and Democrats tend to be a little more critically thinking, right? And so I think that really stuck with a lot of people. Like, this is bullshit. Even if I like Kamala Harris, like, she didn't earn it. You can't just have it handed to you. Like, that's not how it goes. Because at the end of the day, like, what's Kamala Harris fucking done? Like, what? She was like, what has she done?
She did a few things.
She was like a DA in California that I don't think a lot of people liked.
Well, she wasn't, for one thing, she wasn't she's not a convicted criminal.
Right.
She's not on the Epstein list.
That's a plus.
She didn't stiff any of her workers. She didn't grope women or grab them in the pussy or walk into those changing rooms. She was actually on the side of the law, whereas Trump was on the opposite side.
Yeah,
and
that we know of.
Yeah, well, yeah. But
that's my thing lately, Louise, is like, it's just so hard to, I grew up in my mom, very Democrat, true blue, ever since I was a kid. And so, I would hear that side of it like my whole life. And I agreed with it, because I agree with helping people that are down on their luck. I agree with public education. I agree with health care for all. I agree with a lot of the things they used to be very staunch about. But as I get older, I feel like they're getting farther away from me. I feel like I've been right here. I believe in democracy. I love this country. I love this republic. I serve this country. Like I think, if you look at the entire world where we live, we are super blessed, right? Like, because you and I can get on here and say these things and be critical of our leaders and not get shot in the head for it, right? Like, that's awesome. Like there's benefits here. But it's like, now we're talking about, like, does it really matter if I say a word that offends you? Like, is that really what we're doing now? Like, we're worried about words. We're worried about, it's so, the woke thing, like, I understand we need to make some progress there, but it's like the pendulum, we're swinging it that way too hard. And so we got, boom, it swung back and we got this now. And you've got people that said they would never support Trump, love Trump now, because they went too far. I feel like, the left did. And the right is the same. You know, you could say on the right, like, I don't recognize this party anymore. This Epstein thing pisses me off. Like, I'd say I'm an old man, 46 now. It takes a lot to get me angry, right? It makes me angry because it's like, you know, that information is there. You know, there's probably a vault filled, you know, probably bigger than this room, filled with shit that they took off of that island. Videotapes, cameras, camcorders. You know, the guy probably had his own server out there, for God's sakes, you know? So there's no way. And after everything that was said, that stuff isn't there. And like, we're losing sight of what's important. The fact that there were girls that were victims, that they were victimized by rich, powerful men, and that a lot of those rich, powerful men make decisions in our government. That's fucked up. I'm sorry. I don't want to representing me in any capacity. I just don't. I just want to get your reaction to this because this is pretty. He's the victim, not the victims. They're just trying to make him look bad.
Yeah, well, this is you're dealing with a person of extreme sociopathy and narcissism, and I find it astonishing that anyone could ever have thought that Trump, who admitted to boasted about grabbing women in the vagina, walking into girls' changing rooms because he owns the pageant, so he can get away with stuff like that.
Yes,
all his the accusations against him by women have said that he's abused or raped them, and that this would be the guy to expose elite pedophiles. Like, who could have believed that he would be, right? So that's already absurd on its face. But this is very typical of Trump to assign victimhood. Like, you hear the far right talking about how the left loves to be victims, but in fact, a lot of the time, it's people like Trump who cast themselves as the victims of like a vast conspiracy by the liberal elites, etc. Right. And he also repeats that sentiment with the Russia-Ukraine war, because he blamed Ukraine for quote unquote starting that war. So Ukraine was the victim. Obviously, they were invaded in an unprovoked attack, but according to Trump, it was the victim that was the aggressor. And so that's pretty typical of him.
Very presidential. Very presidential.
Yeah. And also the Jan 6, if I could just mention briefly, the Jan 6 defendants who he pardoned, many of them.
He did pardon all of them.
Yeah, the 1,500 of them.
Every single one. Right. Even the ones with the zip ties in their bags.
Yeah. Because he was trying to cast them as like victims and hostages, whatever that means. And many of them were videotaped assaulting police officers. Even like, he claims that he's pro-cop, but hundreds of police officers were assaulted by these people. He gave them just a pardon. So that's ironic, to say the least.
Yeah. They damn near took a veteran's life. I don't know if you watched the documentary on HBO about the Jan 6 debacle, but this is a guy that went on like 3-4 tours in Afghanistan, comes home and is getting accosted by our own citizens.
Yeah,
absolutely insane. He what was crazy is that when they were pulling him out, he was screaming, I have kids, please, I have kids. He didn't have any kids, but he felt like that's the only reason he had to say that for them to let him go, and they let him go. I mean, what kind of a situation is that where one of the bravest of the brave, I mean, a true hero, he was obviously scared for his life, like those people weren't joking around. Some of them, sure. You know, some of the crowd had no clue what was going on. I'll give you that. Like, some of them were just there for the ride. But there was a few of them that they were there for some bad business. You know, they wanted to take Pence and they wanted to kill him, you know, and that's
what a cult of personality does to people. Apparently around America, there have been Christian congregations who have censored certain passages by Jesus himself because those passages are too woke.
What?
That's like the extremity that this has reached.
Do you have an example? Like,
I'd have to look at the specific example, but these ultra kind of MAGA congregations, they have basically supplanted Christ with Trump. Which,
I mean, if you're doing that, you're off the rails. I'm sorry. You're Trump is a person. He's a man. You know, honestly, I lost a lot of my belief in the system after Obama, because I was all about Obama and the change, right? Because I served under Bush Jr., and that was 2 wars. One probably could have been done more effectively. The other was not even necessary. And Obama represented change, right? Like, this is enough. This is stupid. We're not Rome. We're not imperialists. We're not the UK. Like, we need to get out of here. You know, this is stupid. We already took care of Al-Qaeda, whatever. We wrecked Iraq, right? And we caused the rise of the caliphate and ISIS and all that shit that we had to then stamp out. And so Obama comes into office. He's going to shut down Guantanamo. He's going to clean up Wall Street. He's going to, you know, get us health care. So the health care, right on, buddy. That was one thing you got through. I don't use it, but I know it helps people every single day. And I know that no bill is perfect, but once you have a bill, it's very hard to get rid of that puppy. So it's easier to fix it than it is to get rid of it. And so that was a huge deal, but he spent a lot of political capital doing that. And then he leaves Guantanamo. He lets the same people run Wall Street. He kills more people with drones than any other president. He kills an American citizen in another country with a drone without a trial. And I was like, dude, you're just like the rest. You're the same, you know, you present yourself well. You say things I agree with. I think your ideals are probably similar to what mine are, but your actions, what you actually do when you have that position, does not match up with what you've been saying. And I just kind of stopped believing that the president is really running things a while ago. You know, 14 presidents since Roswell have said no if it's real. 14 of them. That's not a president's decision then. There's somebody telling him you can't tell people. It's very, very frustrating, you know, for...
Do you think that there is an alien reality that they're covering up?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, yes. Do I think that? Yes. Do I have factual evidence? No. I could point to, you know, terabytes of research papers and data and CIA files and, you know, all these witness accounts and everything else. But like, I think Rogan's onto something with amnesty. Like, if there was a secret, to keep a secret like that in a country this size, imagine what you'd have to do, Luis. Like, you know, we're talking about an 80-year-old secret. You'd have to do a lot of shitty things, you know, including stealing from your own taxpayers, mortgage fraud, Remember when mortgage fraud got out of control in '08 and the housing market crashed? Like, well, the CIA has said there's been members of the CIA that have said themselves, like, mortgage fraud is the biggest funder of unacknowledged special access programs that there is. CIA was responsible for a big chunk of that mortgage fraud. So they're spending this money on something somewhere. We're not at war with anyone, you know. Where's it all going? Didn't that woman under Bush Jr., she found $21 trillion missing, and they told her, don't worry about it? $21 trillion, Luis. Did you see that story?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she used to be like some financier for Bush Jr. So that money's going somewhere. You know, it can't be soft influence because we have U.S. aid for that. So where's that money going?
Was that story confirmed as? Was it just
the missing money?
Yeah.
As far as I understand, yeah. Like she's released papers. You know, I'm I'm fairly certain. Yeah, I would have to. You know, I'll look into it. But as far as I understand, yes, she had that job. She found that money. She's written papers about it. She's been in articles talking about it. So as far as I understand, yes, that's confirmed. Where's all those trillions of dollars going?
But this is over many years, right? Not just in one year.
This was, well, it was an audit that they did under Bush Jr. So I would imagine maybe it was, God, I hope it wasn't just for a fiscal year.
Because what is the U.S. government's, the federal government's budget every year?
Under Trump, the new one, didn't they just pass a big beautiful bill? I think it just went through the roof.
I'm just wondering because I could imagine 21 trillion going missing, like, but over many years on different things like waste or corruption or whatever. Covert operations.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Yeah. In 2024, it was 6.75 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
So like 4 times our current annual budget was fucking missing, unaccounted for, gone. 4 years of our current annual budget. Now she made the jump to underground bases. I don't know if that's because she really believes that, or it gets her more clicks, or, you know, whatever. But she made the jump to, this is going to underground bases, underground railways that connect the bases, because the in the know that there's something coming and they're going to have to go underground for a period of time.
Yeah, those underground stories are, I think, didn't they start to get really popular kind of in the 80s with, who was that conspiracy theorist?
I got it. Hang on. I got it right, because that's when is in my folder. Let me find it here.
The guy who wrote Behold a Pale.
Schneider.
Yeah, him as well. But
Schneider.
I'm thinking of the big honcho of conspiracism. The guy who died in a shootout with deputies in the early 90s. He was involved. Not John Lear. He was a friend of John Lear for a while.
What's he? What? You're teaching me something right now. Now I want to know who. Yeah.
He was like he was a radio talk show host. Hang on, I've got it on my website.
Okay.
He was a former Navy guy, apparently, but he became a super hardcore conspiracist. And he came to believe that the government was faking UFOs in order to stage like a coup or something like that, or some world crisis that they could. Bill Cooper.
Oh, he got in a shootout?
Yeah, he died. I think there was an active warrant for his arrest, and then the deputies tried to serve the warrant, and he got into a shootout with them, and one of the deputies was actually shot in the head. But
my
Cooper
God.
definitely died.
What? This is on your website?
Yep. Well, I didn't talk about that aspect, but I just there's a connection to the Bob Lazar security badge, the one that he says was given to him as part of his work at S4.
Yeah, the white and the light blue one.
Yeah, and the role
Okay.
of John Lear and Bill Cooper. Let me just give you the link in case you want to. I'll just put it
Yeah.
into the.
That is absolutely I didn't even know that had happened. Whoa. So the shoot, do you know, I'm sorry, I might have missed it. What was the shootout over?
It was a arrest warrant. I think it was over unpaid taxes, because Cooper was very much against paying taxes to the federal government, and I think he joined some militia as well.
Okay.
Possibly right-wing militia. He wasn't a white supremacist or anything like that, but he did believe in some of the New World Order conspiracy theories that people like Timothy McVeigh believed in.
Okay.
And
Yes.
he was heavily into UFOs for a while. He thought that they were ET, but then he came to believe that they were government manufactured. And he had a falling out, I think, with John Lear over this issue.
Okay.
And then he basically became a recluse.
Mm.
But anyway, that's not what the article here is about. This is more about the Lazar ID badge.
How he got his hands on that badge.
Or how he got the idea for it. Yeah.
And you're convinced Lazar is a total fraud, right? Like that's where you're
There's
at with
no
that.
doubt in my mind.
What was the thing that did it for you? Like what pushed it over the edge for you?
It's cumulative. So it's like the fact that he lied about his education. You don't do that in academia. If you're a physicist, you don't need to lie about your education.
Could the government erase that?
No, because
you don't think that would be possible?
He would have been in the yearbooks for MIT and Caltech, and those yearbooks. He says that he was at those institutions in the early 80s. Those would have been distributed to alumni, right? Thousands of alumni. Yes. And then they would have taken them around the country with them when they moved houses or whatever, gave them to their families. So there's no way that the government could track down yearbooks, obviously.
Right.
Because in order to suppress that, you would have to believe that the government sneaks into the houses of everyone with the yearbooks, erases Lazar's name and puts them back. So that doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Then there's the fact that Lazar named people at MIT and Caltech who never actually worked there, but who did work at the high school he went to and the junior college he went to. So he's obviously just, thinking about people who were his teachers, but not at those institutions. Right. Obviously, they've got no record of him. You could make the case, I guess, the argument that they expunged his records, but then they would also have to intimidate everybody who knew him there, right, to not talk about him. He doesn't have a single shred of documentation in his own possession for ever taking any courses there or having any master's degrees. He doesn't produce his master's thesis. The very topic of the master's thesis that he says he got from MIT was magnetohydrodynamics, which was very popular in UFO documentaries from the 1970s and 80s. You'll see mentions of it multiple times. Magnetohydrodynamics. So it's a way that you can propel a craft and in water, a submarine, using like an electromagnetic field to essentially push against the medium and to kind of drag yourself through. And some people claim that that's how the UFOs operate.
Okay.
Right. So that's like a popular trope in ufology. And if you go back to, and you can find these on YouTube, these documentaries, they mention that proposal. And that's definitely where Lazar got the idea to include that trope, because it resonates with the broader UFO community and the other tropes that he brings in, like the Zeta Reticuli reference, which is obviously well known from the Betty and Barney Hill case, had already become popular by then. Various tropes about how the aliens might have engineered humanity during its evolution, that they modified the DNA of the simian ancestor.
Right.
That was an idea basically from ancient aliens lore and some movies at the time, which explicitly, was saying that the aliens came here, they designed humanity from a common ancestor.
Oh, and this is still very
that's still very much believed by a lot of these folks.
Yeah.
Lazar, let's see, he also claimed that there was an altercation between the gray aliens at S4 and the security personnel. That story had already been circulated by, I think, Paul Benowitz and maybe John Lear, who were talking about the Dulce base, right? Where there were claims that the aliens had gotten into a shootout or an altercation with the commandos who had gone into the base to try to rescue humans who had been kidnapped or something.
Yeah.
So that story had already been
under surface.
And then there's Schneider. Yeah. And I think Schneider, didn't he claim that there was a special element that the aliens were using? And he even presented
something like, so this is like, I haven't edited this or anything. This was just, it was on, oh gosh, I forget. It was on some, research website, and so I just grabbed it while I could. But yeah, this is, I'll just play a couple minutes of it, but this is the Schneider thing to reference.
Number the early, at that time, number of the original wells or drilling machines that were used were at the rate of 2 miles a day. It was fairly rapid. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down and we wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer or human observers in this.
And I believe he's talking about doing a tunnel from Dulce underground to somewhere else, right? Like S4 or something like that.
Yeah, they were claiming that, these people claim that there's like a crisscross network and even like maybe high-speed rail or a maglev train which connects everything.
Just like we're hearing now, yeah. Interesting.
But, there was actually I think it was under President Reagan, there was a proposal to build railways under the ground and have launch sites which would open up.
Yeah.
Right, and then launch missiles so that the Soviets couldn't target the nukes in America and wipe out in a first strike. But that project got canceled by, I think, Congress canceled that because it was too expensive, or might have been because the engineers didn't think it would work. But anyway, it was canceled. That's probably where this trope comes from. Sometimes they'll take something genuine like underground facilities, which there are, obviously, various underground facilities for different things. But then they'll go completely wild with that and say that the aliens live there or that there's a secret government living underground.
Right. Yeah, like this.
Observers, in this case, find out what was going on. Well, to our total surprise, first of all, the government knew all about it. They didn't tell anybody. When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people encamped inside of our geologist camp, I knew something was up. The gig was up. First of all, I knew all about the alien agenda. I'll explain that in a few minutes.
So unless things have changed, I don't know if you'd see a Green Beret at a local, like Green Berets are, at least back then, training guerrillas in other countries. They weren't operating in the United States.
The large alien grays had been encamped there for as best as believed possible about 400 or 500 years. It had been one of their internal bases. And we'd drilled holes right on top of it. All the stinking air, all the black sooty air came right out as soon as the first hole was sunk, and all this soot came up. And well,
so like already it's hard to believe him, right? Because how would he know they've been living there for 400 or 500 years?
Yeah. Right.
They just like.
Well, that's when all the hell broke loose, really. All started. Lowered down the basket of one of these holes, and about from me to this elderly woman here in the front was sitting a 7-foot tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage can you can imagine. The person was or the entity was absolutely horrible. I didn't waste any time. I reached for my pistol. At that time, as an engineer, I didn't have time to carry all the folder, all of one of these big submachine guns that all the sea spray and the yellow fruit and all the outer perimeter and inner perimeter security people carried. I carried a little Walther PPK pistol with a 9-shot clip. This was in late August of 1979.
Okay,
So he shot an alien because it smelled bad?
so he's a 7-foot tall stinky alien. It's just standing there, and you go for your gun. What the fuck? Welcome to Earth?
Now, you got a regular suit of clothes, you got a regular clothes on, plus you're in almost like a spacesuit environment, and you're reaching for a gun. It's not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop a clip in it and start shooting.
All right, why wouldn't your clip be in the gun?
And I killed 2 of them. Yes, they're mortal, and they do die. However, in the process, one of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I know, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish. And burnt my fingers right off of me. And it was some form of electrical force, because the kind of like being hit by a lightning bolt burned all my toenails off of me. Completely crispy crittered my left foot. Burnt the shoe right off of me.
Okay, that's all I can stand. But look, I believe all the experiencers, any experiencer, should have the opportunity to share their story, and talk to people about it, and not be called crazy or whatever. I think that's part of the problem, is that we label people that have these experiences like they're crazy or whatever. That's been part of the problem for a long time. But also, we have to call a spade, right? Like if you hear something and you're like, well, there's several things that does not jive with me at all with. Like, don't, because it fits a narrative, don't believe it if everything in your body is telling you it's not real, right? Like, just because you want to believe in something, you need to be aware of that you do want to believe in something. And so that's going to give you a bias. And so when you hear a story like that, you wonder how it gains any traction. It's like, well, bias and time, right? Like time passes and people grow up with this story. They don't stop telling the story. It becomes bigger than it is. And then it's actually legitimized for whatever reason, just because of time. And then the circular reporting, right? And so they go on these podcasts like you and I are doing, and they're like, oh yeah, then there was the thing that happened to Schneider, and and everybody's like, oh yeah, yep. And it's like, no, that probably didn't happen. So let's not say yes, the thing that happened to Schneider. It's just crazy, but it's done. It's not just the UFO community. Like I said, the Wall Street Journal, part 1 of that story, I feel like is the same thing, just like for that opposite side. But yeah, the underground bases thing is big. The lady was saying that she believed those trillions of dollars, that's where it went. But again, you call it out. In the 80s, they're saying the same shit. And it's like, it's very, they were saying even back in the 90s, disclosure was coming soon.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, I remember that well.
Yeah.
I was quite heavily into UFOs as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I was expecting a big reveal to be
Yeah.
And I thought that the government was US government was going to reveal what it knew, for whatever reason, maybe just its own self-interest, but it was going to reveal the truth, and that you couldn't hide this anymore. And then as the years went by, I just realized, well, a lot of people are telling stories, but where is the actual reveal that you promised?
Yeah. Well, maybe the real story is the legacy stuff, right? And the folks that really know the deal are all compromised because they all participated in illegal activity. And that kind of, puts them between a rock and a hard place as far as being able to come forward. One thing that really I've noticed lately is just the lack of organization with these whistleblower programs. Like, it's like the Wild West. It seems like it's like, yeah, you can come in and talk to us. But you're probably going to talk to a staffer the first 2 or 3 times. And then, if we get you in a SCIF, you're still accountable to the same NDAs and security clearances and all that kind of stuff. So if you say something wrong in there, you could get in trouble. We can't guarantee that you'll keep your job once wind of it gets out, and wind of it will get out that you're talking to us. So we can't guarantee that you'll keep your job. We can't guarantee that we're not going to assign you any kind of security detail. And it's like, they treat members of the mob that testify better than this, right? Like they put them they at least make an effort. They put them in a witness protection program. They make sure they're okay. They don't do anything for these people. You want to whistle? They're like, yeah, come on down, whistleblow. We need to hear it. Da, 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 da. But they're taking all the risk and there's no reward. And like, I don't know if you know Michael Herrera. Do you know that story?
I think I've heard of it.
He's the one that he was the Marine. They came across the UFO when they were doing a peacekeeping mission during a natural disaster. They came over this hill. They came upon this black UFO. This kind of special operations team engaged them. Had them drop their weapons and everything and checked out all their IDs and said, we've killed people for seeing less and all this kind of shit. Like, and then finally they loaded up this stuff into this black UFO disc looking thing and took off. And he originally thought it was drugs that they were loading up. And then he meets Jake Barber at this Stephen Greer conference. And Jake Barber tells him, oh, I'm familiar with that. Those aren't drugs. Those are human assets. We go to where natural disasters are, where we know people are going to be missing, and we grab human assets we think we could use for psionics. And we kidnap them. Yeah, this is what Jake Barber said. Michael Herrera comes forward. And, well, let me, I think I saved it, but let me see here.
I've been trying to get in front of a U.S. congressional hearing for almost 2 years. So it's something as a firsthand witness that I feel like I'd have a good impact with that, especially with the unique position I've been afforded to as far as see things in a first-person perspective that 99% of the population probably would never get to see or participate. So having that said, I'm going to be very blunt. If we got people who are firsthand who are coming forward, I would ask you to reconsider.
But isn't there a contradiction in saying, like, if Luna says that these guys are full of crap because they don't show up to the the meetings,
SCIF meeting.
Disclosure, but then on the other hand, we're saying that they don't have any motivation to do that because they're not going to be protected, right? So what's maybe there is an argument to be made that they're not full of crap from that perspective anyway.
Right.
But then on the other hand, all the psionics stuff kind of just sounds like what Schneider's talking about, like that level of craziness, right? It doesn't jive.
It's interesting because the Skywatcher thing. So they were operating using the dog whistle for about 3 years. And then Jake Barber and the psionic people came in. And then they did the podcast and, raised the public awareness of who they were. So to most of the public, they thought the psionics was always there. but it wasn't. They were having a high success rate doing this for 3 years with just the dog whistle. And then the psionics guys came in, and the owner of the company himself will say, I don't know how much value they're actually adding. But Jake Barber has a helicopter, and he'll do most of the stuff for free. They need done a helicopter, but they're sussing some of those people out. In fact, we talked about Eric Mitchell earlier. They talked to him about, potentially coming and talking to them about some stuff. So I think that they don't want to get caught up in anything that might be bullshit too. Cause their Skywatcher, I mean, they make it very clear. They're trying to get a government contract. That's what they're trying to do. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're very straightforward about it. We want to be the guys. There's an unknown element in the air. We want to be the guys that can tell you if they're going to be there or not, or how you can possibly call on them or not. Right. And that's where they want to be. So whether it's psionics or not, like, they're going to do whatever works.
Wasn't Skywatch the group that put out a video that looks very much like a flock of birds?
Yes. I think it had to do with the lighting or something, or the reflection or refraction. I don't know. You think psionics is bullshit. Why is that?
Well, it's the trope of psionics, actually, it's not new. It goes back to, I think, the 40s or 50s. There was certain, or at least maybe the 60s, but certain hippie type groups who were interested in spirituality were using that word psionics. Okay. There was the Soviet psychotronics. That was a word. I think they use that word, but it's basically like machinery or technology that can be used to amplify or tap into psychic abilities. But the Soviets did do some research into ESP and that sort of stuff, but I think it didn't go anywhere. It was just like a stab in the dark. Maybe it was actually even a cover for their own satellites or whatever, like just as the US might have on occasion done that, as you alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
So who knows there? But it seems to have not been successful in a very real sense. But I mean, sometimes there are like hits that you get, but you can attribute that to the success of psychics, but you're always going to get some hits. Like, but is it really statistically above average, right? How many hits are you getting? And it's very suspicious that no intelligence agency on Earth uses psychic abilities as their main source of intelligence gathering. It's always satellites or human intelligence on the ground, spies, etc., drones, electronic means of interception. So, and psionics, I mentioned it was mentioned in the 50s or 60s, but then it started to get used in like Dungeons and Dragons and some other role-playing games and things like that. So it became a very widely used and widely known word and trope. And it just seems a little bit suspicious that now these guys are reusing it. But really, it gets to the whole consciousness aspect and the religion aspect. I think that the UFO story is becoming more explicitly religious. And the people that's, who was that? Somebody in one of these programs, or claims to be a whistleblower, was saying that God is real, that's what they want people to get.
Matthew Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
He said outright, God is real. Like, how the hell does he know that? Right.
Yeah. He's posted some interesting things on X as well. I don't know if you've seen any of that. Have you seen any of his
kind
of cryptic?
I did actually. I think I mentioned him on my website. He also, what did he say? He said that there's a cabal operating on, this article. I'll just give it to you.
Yes.
That there's a cabal operating internationally and that they've got more power than governments.
Yep.
and that they're making all the decisions in terms of the UFO disclosure and all these other things. That sounds dangerously like, I'm not saying that he's an anti-Semite, but that sounds a lot like the world Jewish conspiracy tropes that were popular, obviously, during the time of the Nazis, but also many right-wing militia groups in America, many white supremacists, many right-wing podcasters have leaned into that. You know, when they talk about globalism, it's often just a dog whistle for Jews. And I'm concerned that people who use this trope about like international conspiracies are inadvertently playing into that. They don't know how it's being used. So we should be very careful when we give any credence to something, that it should be true, that there's good evidence that it's true. But if we don't have good evidence, we shouldn't be like carelessly throwing it around and being oblivious to how it's being used by very, reactionary or nasty people.
I've seen more anti-Semitism in the last couple years on social media than I can recall ever seeing in my entire life.
And this Jewish world conspiracy idea, it in ufology, it gets used by, for example, some ideas about reptilians, that they're obsessed with blood and I think gold, that they hoard gold. I think I've heard that. But that they're also obsessed with taking out blood to do like hybridization experiments. And some people, like, I think, what's her name? She's been at this for like 50 years now. She was
Linda Motenhow?
Yeah. She has put out a very weird kind of space opera type of story where there's Nordics, Greys, and reptilians, and that they're in Antarctica underground in a war, and that there's also like a cosmic war going on where some of these aliens are harvesting human souls, right? And that, so like these ideas about like Nordics as like, usually they're the good guys. And the reptilians and the Greys are the bad guys. And sometimes it cuts too close to home in terms of like the similarity with the Jewish conspiracies.
Like I've never, it's like I just have not.
I mean, when you see it, you can't unsee it.
I do. I need to kind of look at stuff with a fresh lens there, because you get so wrapped up in trying to find the thing, you forget you're absorbing a lot of stuff along with that, right? And definitely something I'm gonna have to be aware.
Ironically, something that Trump is doing is feeding into that, which is that, well, many things he's doing, but one of the things is his with the BDS movement, he said that he wants to cut funding to cities who have BDS, right? Which is to do with do you know what BDS is?
No.
It's like anti-Israel. What does B stand for? D stands for disinvestment.
Okay.
Boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions. So it's like
BDS.
It's a way to kind of stop it. The idea is how to stop Israel from doing certain things in Gaza, or just to stop supporting Israel per se. So a lot of people kind of support this as a way to
divestment sanctions.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Trump said that any cities in America who are doing that will not receive FEMA aid during natural disasters.
How can he do that?
Completely outrageous and grotesque misuse of the government, because the government's supposed to help anybody who's in trouble in a natural disaster, regardless of their politics, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative or whatever, or what the government's position is. If there's a natural disaster, the federal government, at the very least, is supposed to help those communities.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this really makes it look like, to a lot of the people who believe in Jewish world conspiracies, that even Trump, who is meant to be the sort of this isolationist America First guy, is actually not MAGA, but MEGA, M-I-G-A, make Israel great again, right? And that the Jews are really in the driver's seat, that there really is a Jewish world conspiracy. So, yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that it's ironic because Trump presents himself as pro-Jewish, and he uses his support of Israel to bolster that. But then that can have the effect of seeming to validate for many people that there's a Jewish conspiracy. There's also a dangerous Christo-fascist element here, which is that a lot of Americans support Israel, not because they like Jews, but because Israel is seen as part of a prophecy in the Bible, that it's going to signal the return of
chosen
Christ.
People and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. The rapture and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so they support Israel in that regard. And so they support American foreign policy when it sends weapons to Israel or doesn't favor the Palestinians. But you probably know this, that Mike Huckabee is the ambassador to Israel now. Mike Huckabee,
really? I did not know that.
He was appointed by Trump.
Okay.
Huckabee is a young earth creationist, biblical literalist, basically.
Yeah, he's the guy that goes to like the museums where there's dinosaurs and kids and stuff, right? Okay, yeah.
And he fully subscribes to the end times narrative surrounding Israel and the return of Christ.
Yeah.
And Trump is empowering a lot of these Christo-fascists, not because he believes in, he's a Christian. I don't think he even believes in God, to be honest.
I don't think so either.
He just uses religion as like basically what Napoleon did, which is to use religion to control the masses. And so you probably also saw that Pete Hegseth recently put out like tweets during that he's acting Secretary of Defense. He's putting out tweets promoting a pastor who thinks that women should not be allowed to vote because in the Bible it says something or other. And he thinks that some slave owners in the South were good people and other crap like that. So why is the Secretary of Defense putting out that crap? It's to appease a certain segment of American society, which, when we talked about this earlier, it's super ironic that they support Trump as some sort of savior or at least representative of God, even though Trump is the most sacrilegious, philandering, etc., criminal type that America's ever had as a president. So the kind of a blending of crime, religion, xenophobia, fascist spectacle, this support for Israel, which is sort of schizophrenic because a lot of these people are also anti-Semitic in the US, but they want to support Israel. Other ones are just against Israel because it's Jewish. Other ones are against Israel because, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think she has previously supported arms transfers to Israel, but not this time. She's more of an isolationist type. She just doesn't want to help anybody. So she comes at it from that perspective. As far as I know, she hasn't been consistently anti-Semitic, except when she talked about the Jewish space lasers, which is really weird. But that's
they were causing the fires.
Yeah. But I think she's mainly coming at this from the point of view of just America first, which she takes to be America isolated from everybody else, not getting involved in anybody's wars or conflicts. America and that's the spat she's having with Laura Loomer, which I showed you some clips or some transcripts from that. The little war that they're having on social media. Laura Loomer is very, very pro-Israel, whereas MTG is not pro. She's not pro-Iran. She's just not doesn't want to send weapons to Israel. And so that sort of represents a split within MAGA, right?
Yeah.
There's also other splits as well.
And that's what I was saying earlier, why I lost faith in presidents a long time ago is because I just don't think they have the power we give them credit for. You know, I hate to say this, but maybe there is something to this deep state thing. You know, I mean, it would make sense to have like a group of people kind of that can override and pull the strings and cheat when we need to.
It's the deep state in the sense that I could make an argument for it is that there's a constellation of interests within the military and aerospace and arms contractors.
Yeah.
Who they've got a certain view of how American foreign policy should be conducted, that it should be involved in the world. And that's sort of been a constant throughout America's, like into the sort of mid 20th century till now, basically.
Yeah.
But then there's also the way that Trump uses it, and many people in MAGA use it, is basically anybody in the IC or the military who goes against Trump, they tell the truth about something, whereas he's blatantly lying about it. They're going to be castigated as deep state. And there was an example of that recently, actually, where there was a national security estimate about the involvement of the Venezuelan regime in gangs in America. Trump was saying that one of these Venezuelan gangs is receiving active support from the Venezuelan government. The IC didn't agree with that. And he just said, well, these are deep state actors, right? So these are actually intelligence analysts who are, their job is to actually assess objectively as possible, which is the job of the IC, is to give policymakers, whether they're Republican or Democrat or whatever, the tools that they need and the accurate information that they need to make good decisions. Whether they do make good decisions, that's not what the IC is for. And like the IC can't set policy, they can only provide intelligence, in theory. But
in theory,
that's sort of the sense in which Trump uses the deep state, is just to target anybody who doesn't agree with him or contradict him.
Right.
Ironically, he's actually setting up his own deep state with his own lackeys and yes men, I would argue.
And while we're dealing with all this bullshit, China's just building and becoming more and more powerful and getting more and more nations indebted to them. Yeah, we'll have to get into that. I've kept you here, what, like 3.5 hours? So I feel like I should probably let you go. But where are you at with the UFO thing right now? What are kind of your overall thoughts on it as of now, pre-writing the book?
It's just more adding stuff on that's happened recently, to do with Arrow, to do with some of the spiritualist conferences and the psionics and the hitchhiker stuff as well. So I think those are indicative of broader trends within the UFO space. I still don't think there's anything to it in terms of an objective reality for space visitors coming here. I do think
you don't think there's any kind of NHI at the current moment here.
No, except artificial intelligence. That's okay. NHI.
Sure. Yeah.
But
it's interesting they changed that language to say NHI, isn't it?
Yeah.
The timing of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think we're definitely going to see more religious narratives around UFOs. I don't know to what extent Trump is going to use any of this. I think it'll still be a pretty fringe thing.
Yeah, it seems to kind of like, I mean, it's been, almost 10 years, almost a decade since that 2017 article.
Yeah.
And it seems like we have more questions now and less answers than we had then.
Mm-hmm.
If you go through the FOIA stuff, you find out that they were emailing about the gimbal, the Go Fast video, the pill. They knew what all three of those things were.
Yeah.
But they held that back and they let the Times go ahead with that story. And so there's got to be a reason for that. Otherwise, because why would they not tell them that we can identify those things and leave it a mystery? Like, the only reason you would do that is to leave the door open for obfuscation. Or you're hiding a technology. It's remote viewing. It's not our new satellite, right? It's some alien NHI. It's not a jet covered in aerogel. Like stuff like that. Like, I didn't even know what aerogel was until this year. I was shocked. Have you looked into this stuff?
Aerogel, is that like the absorbent material made of air?
I mean, you could basically make something damn near invisible with this stuff, right? And fly it around. You could do all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, there's technology that we have that if you looked at it, you would probably say that doesn't look human. Like it looks magical or whatever. So, yeah, it kind of goes full circle back to that 2,000 years ago. It was an angel. Now it's a UFO. So, interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely technologies which are being tested. Like, I saw an article, I think it was in the Warzone section of drive.com.
Yeah.
This aircraft which they're testing, which doesn't use any ailerons or other moving surfaces on its wings. It uses like little jets of air.
Oh, okay.
To push.
Okay.
And I think it uses electricity somehow. Or it uses electricity to change the density of the air around a part of the wing. Wow. So that decreases, like, it's really good for stealth because that decreases any seams or openings, which can reflect radar back to the source.
Right.
It's basically just completely flush. So we're going to see more of that sort of stuff as well. Obviously, drones and the advances there in AI. The Ukraine war is very integral to that because Ukraine has got a lot of battlefield data. So does Russia, but Ukraine's really the leader now in drone AI.
They are beating Russia with drones. Well, not beating, but they're fending them off with drones. Yeah.
And so the drone thing is going to be very important. But, the worrying thing is that this stuff is happening, this research and development, which plays into this UFO story. But then you're going to get on the other side as well the psionics stories, the spiritualist stuff as well. So the result is going to be sort of a weird hybrid in terms of what stories are popular.
Yeah. Well, I just loaded this up. Now, have you heard of the Psi Games?
Psi Games, no.
Psi Games. So the Psi Games is a psionic games. And this woman on the stage here, I believe her name is Dahlia. She's somewhat of a legend in these circles, these psionic circles, remote viewing circles. So this is a demonstration they did. Now, I haven't confirmed whether this was at the Psi Games or the Contact in the Desert right before. I haven't been able to figure out which one. I haven't been able to confirm it, but it's the same presentation they did at both of them either way. So this is this girl named Dahlia. Check this out. Let me know what you think.
Step 5. I'm impartial, Dahlia.
She's blindfolded and...
All right. Yeah. I'm set. Dahlia, are you ready?
Is that Joe
Your mark. Get set. Go.
Huh?
Is that Joe Mergia?
With the mic?
Yeah.
It could be. It very well could be.
Green. Great playing, everybody. Get out! Are you ready? Yeah, I know. All right, ready? On your mark, get set, go.
Right. I think this is what is known as my.
Are you ready? On your mark, get set. On your mark, get set, go.
No way this could be bullshit.
Are you ready? On your mark, get set, go.
Also, I don't know why the distance matters, but they keep stepping back further.
By the time you hit it, are you ready? All right. You ready? On your mark.
What did you say?
You just said to my ear, he's blocking me. On your mark, Ken, it's okay. Dinner's on me tonight. This is good. Amazing. You've earned it. You're a rock star. Are you ready to go? Okay. On your mark, get set, go.
So you could probably guess she gets the next one right. So it's like they're cheering, they're screaming. I mean, this is proof to this group of people. And like, that's something they could have pulled off in the 1600s for money. I mean, that could that's not a controlled environment. There's nothing preventing them from, there's a million ways they could have gamed that. A million ways they could have gamed that. And this is evidence now that psionics works. I mean, this is what they're saying is evidence that psionics works.
Apparently.
Are you convinced?
Oh, yeah. I'm all in.
Age of Disclosure. Remember that documentary that's supposed to come out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is apparently why it's been slowed up. Luis Elizondo's new lawyer, Ivan Hanel, filed a lawsuit in California against Dan Farah, who is the producer of Age of Disclosure. Something about, there was a deal in brokering Elizondo's imminent book deal and appears to be an attempt to force renegotiation of the existing terms. Sorta, it's Lou's fault the production is delayed, but not why you think. So whatever that means. But apparently we're not seeing Age of Disclosure, not because they're negotiating a contract with some company, which that didn't make much sense to me. I figured all these streamers would love to have it. It's not that. It's Lou's holding up this negotiation for whatever reason. I'm not sure. Now this Ivan guy, I'll give you one more crazy thing before you head out. This Ivan guy went into a UFO group chat, okay? And he started personally messaging everyone in that chat. Have you talked to your families? Have you prepared for the end, basically? This is Lou's new attorney. Messaging all, like, over 100 random people, basically the end is nigh. Mm-hmm. Have you prepared your family?
You mean the end is nigh for them or the world?
All of us, the world. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, because I knew that one of Elizondo's, I think it was Elizondo's lawyer, had threatened somebody, like telling them that they can't afford drawn out lawsuits, so they shouldn't just give up.
Yeah. Yeah. So some more food for thought there for your book. I just thought you'd find it interesting. Don't interview Lou Elizondo, folks. Wouldn't let that guy in my life if he paid me. Yeah. So Luis, thank you, buddy. Thank you so much for coming on again. It's always a pleasure. I hope you'll come back again. I hope I didn't wear you out on this one. But I really enjoyed getting your takes on some of this stuff.
I think that a lot of events in society are just kind of chaotic. People are try to ascribe a sort of overarching meaning or direction to them, but
Yeah.
things can turn on a dime. Sometimes there are genuine trends in history. Things get worse for a long time. Sometimes they get better for a long time. But I think we all have agency and we all have a responsibility. We all have to try to do good in the world.
Yeah.
That's about all that we can do.
Right. I mean, yeah, and it does matter. You know, people will say that kind of defeatist attitude, like, it doesn't matter if I vote, it doesn't matter if I recycle, it's just me, but it does matter. It does matter because a lot of me's equal a lot of me's.
Yes.
And it matters. So I love it, man. I love the perspective. And thank you so much again for coming on. So yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap this up, buddy.